Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello. I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. So you got some people here in the chat. Tim, Hot Ham, Ward. We'll be going over Brian Entin's video tonight, and we're also going to be going over our buddy Maureen O'Connell, former FBI agent, and we'll see what else. We'll see what else has happened out there. But again, time's a wasting here on this whole thing, and we're going to get some good information from a former sheriff. He's going to give his take on the situation of what the local law enforcement did there. And spoiler alert, he's not the happiest with how it went down there. Mac and Cheese, welcome. If you're here, remember to hit that like button. Likes are free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Don't forget, how are you? And the best way to get questions answered are super chats. Hopefully the super chats are working today. Sweet Caroline yesterday was telling me they weren't even working. That's not good. Mayor, welcome. And Phil Bradley's here, who is neither late nor early, just on time as usual. You see, Phil Bradley and me, we're like twin flames, neither late nor early. We arrive when we're supposed to. Rachel, welcome. Beth. Oh, we have a new addition to the flock of black sheep. Her name is Bethany. Let's make sure Bethany feels welcomed here. Mike, welcome. Rachel, welcome. So today also, we're going to assess how the sheriff is handling things there too, because a former sheriff, he critiques it. He critiques what's going down. Yeah, Bethany, we have a great flock of black sheep here, people that have been through all sorts of things, a lot of people that have been through abusive relationships, maybe have had narcissistic parents, dysfunctional families, as most of us have. So we have a unique and eccentric group of people here, and I would have it no other way. Make the new sheep watch Oprah clips. That sounds like cruel and unusual punishment, Mac and Cheese. Force them to watch the video about how going no contact with family is a trend. Or the other one with the dude from Raging Moderates. Oh, Cat's here from across the pond. Hi, everyone. Not feeling very well. So I won't be so chatty, but I'm listening. By the way, Sable on Blonde has a new song out on her channel. Check that out. And when I say Cat, that's who I'm referring to, Sable on Blonde. I've watched you for a few days, so I'm sort of new. Hey, new people are very welcome here, Rachel. We're a very welcoming crowd, because many of us have been through all sorts of things. We all have our own unique stories here. I've also been thinking about trying to get out there onto the scene at some point too. And we'll see how that goes. You got it, Cat. But let's jump right in here to this, see how things are going out here.
So much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I appreciate all the support. I'm, of course, still in Tucson, Arizona. I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house right here. You can see all the media across the street. There's been a lot going on over the last 12 hours or so that I want to get to. First of all, law enforcement was back at Annie Guthrie's house just a little while ago. Right now, it's gosh, I'm losing track of my days. It's Wednesday, depending on when you're watching this story or watching this this episode. They were back at Annie Guthrie's house. There were 2 law enforcement agents that showed up in a gray SUV. They went inside the house. They came outside the house with latex gloves on. And they were holding a brown bag. They were not in the house for long. And then they also went and got mail out of the mailbox, again, wearing the gloves, and then they left. So it was not like what we saw on Saturday night where they were there for 3 hours and we saw pictures being taken inside. That wasn't the case. It was quick. They went in, they had gloves on, they came out with a brown bag, and then...
And remember, Guthrie family gave them permission to take those pictures at Annie's house. It wasn't like it was against their will or something like that. They gave them permission to do so.
They also checked the mail. So that is the latest development that happened at Annie's house. The FBI today is reporting that they are going to be doing ground searches along roadways in the Catalina foothills around where Nancy and Annie live. And when I was out at Annie's house yesterday and I saw the FBI going door to door, they asked one of the neighbors for permission to search. And then the neighbor said, well, what are you looking for? And they said something that may have been dropped, which makes me think when you look back at those pictures of the suspect, what he was wearing, then the mask, the backpack, the gloves, all that, are they looking to see if something was maybe thrown out of a car window? Because we know today the search is specifically directed along roadways. So that's the latest from the FBI. Pima County Sheriff's Office says that there will be no updates today, no briefings unless there's a development, which kind of surprised me in light of what happened last night. You guys remember they had that person detained who has since been let go. I raced out an hour away from Tucson, very, very close to the Mexico border. I went like, I shouldn't say this, but I was going like 100 miles an hour trying to get there when I got the tip that they had this person detained. There was a federal search warrant that was being executed at the house. The family members of the guy were like, there's no way he's involved in Nancy Guthrie. We don't know about the case. He wasn't out of town last weekend. He doesn't know anything about Bitcoin. And I talked to them and come to find out a few hours later, he was released. He was detained and then released. And it appears he has nothing to do with the case, although we'll have to see. I mean, they must have had something.
So what could that possibly be? They detained this person and then what? So a theory I saw thrown out there was, and this is just a theory, was that they thought that maybe that DoorDash driver had delivered to a place where maybe Nancy was or the kidnapper was. And maybe that's what it was. And that's why they compensated all the phones. And last night, as you saw, Brian Entin was talking to the mother, trying to get information out of her. Oh, is this your son that has been in the Nest Cam footage? She didn't say it was, of course. But that's just one possible theory as to why they even detained that person to begin with. But now they're released. So they apparently, there's nothing.
That search warrant to be able to go search the house and detain him. So I'll stay on top of that, try to figure out how all of that sorts out today. But again, I was hoping there'd be some kind of press briefing from the sheriff, and that doesn't appear like it's going to happen. I want to go to Kurt Dabb, who is was a longtime homicide detective here in Pima County, to help me break down these latest developments, especially what happened last night with this man being detained, and sort of what he thinks about where things are going to go from here. What do you make of what happened last night? I mean, we raced down to, near the Mexico border. They had him detained, and then now he walked out. What do you think happened there?
I don't know what leads specifically led them, to that individual.
And yes, it was the mother-in-law of the person, not the mother.
Extremely grateful for the technology that, the FBI has to recover some video, and I'm hoping that they have other video that they're holding back. Yeah, it was a complete surprise to me. I saw the detention last night. I went to bed and woke up this morning and praying, that it was the suspect, and then, that individual was released. So what, often happens in homicide investigations, you have to follow leads as they come in. Earlier in our other interview, I spoke about you have to start working that circle outwards, right? And I mentioned Uber drivers, delivery drivers. So I'm guessing that's what that individual was. I listened to his interview. He may or may not have delivered a package in that area. So it's good to see that they're following up on the investigation, on the leads. And with a situation like this, you know that the bad guy was armed because you saw it on the camera. So we, and law enforcement, formally, but they have to take precautions. So it didn't surprise me the amount of individuals and the type of units that they use for this detention. But that's what happens. Leads are going to pan out and they're not going to pan out. So you have to suss everyone out.
In your experience, they did a search warrant at the house. They had him detained. They got him at a traffic stop. They took him back to headquarters.
Look at his
a
name.
longtime homicide detective here in Pima County. All of that sorts out today. But again, I was hoping there'd be some kind of press briefing from the sheriff, and that doesn't appear like it's going to happen. I want to go to Kurt Dabb, who is
Kurt Dabb
Was a longtime homicide detective here in Pima County.
So he was a delivery driver, was in the neighborhood, and they were following up on the lead on a potentially armed and dangerous individual.
What's your sense on where things stand now? Because I don't know, you know, one of my buddies in the FBI was saying we don't ever, and he's not involved in this case, but he was saying we don't like to release photos. Like if the FBI is releasing photos, it means that they actually need help.
Yeah. And it's the same way with the sheriff's department. You know, if we're tracking, you know, a suspect.
And that's an interesting way to see it. So that's what I would say to Tony Bruschi from yesterday too. They're saying, okay, the FBI is releasing photos. That means they need help in the case, where maybe if they didn't, they wouldn't release pictures. I don't think Tony Bruschi's seeing it that way, right? He thinks, oh, we should have gotten this a week ago. Well, according to Brian Entin and the former sheriff here, actually, maybe they only released it because they need help. And if they would have had something, they wouldn't have never released it to begin with.
You can look at it either way, right? You can put, if you have a suspect and you have a photograph, you're more than likely going to have eyes on that individual, meaning you're going to be surveilling him. And a lot of times they'll release something in the media to garner an action out of the individual that they're looking for. Whether or not that was the case last night, I'm not sure. But, you know, that's what it is.
Do you think, because he was pulled over not far from where he lived,
Okay.
I found out when I was out there, do you think that means that he was under surveillance? Like, what do you think they had eyes on him before this and then something happened where they decided, let's get him?
I'm assuming so, yes. Because just because you have a named individual that you're looking into, and again, you know, this person at that time was an investigative lead. So you can't just out of the blue decide to go drive somewhere and hope that the individual is going to be where you think they're going to be. So I would assume that they had some type of surveillance. I understand the FBI brought in a bunch more people yesterday or the day before. You know, maybe it was FBI information that they were acting on, contacted the sheriff's department, said, hey, you know, let's roll. I don't know if that's what the case was, but it possibly could be.
Do you think that there could be other people under surveillance right now? What does your gut tell you?
I would hope so, but that's, you know, just my guess. Like, everybody has theories about what's going on, and theories are like, you know, everyone has one. So your theory is as good as mine, and I'm just hoping that, you know, I'm hoping they have.
So again, they're saying there's probably a lot of people under surveillance right now, and we have to remember, just because they haven't told us doesn't mean they're not doing something. Doesn't mean they don't have more information than they're sharing. Like we said, Ashley Banfield says that the son-in-law is a suspect. The sheriff and the FBI, they have never confirmed that once. But it doesn't mean Ashley Banfield's wrong.
Information that they haven't released yet that they're utilizing to further the investigation, whether it's surveillance, whether it's like yesterday walking around, you know, picking up or doing an article search. That's what they were doing. They were looking for an article of something that maybe the kidnapper had discarded. So
we were told last night out there that the sheriff had been there. He was gone by the time we got there.
Been
to the place where they Rio Rico. Yeah,
okay.
Rio Rico. Is that significant? I mean,
no, and I'm sorry that I laughed, but when you're a detective working a case or you're an officer working a case, the last thing that you want is to have the sheriff show up at any case, and especially a homicide, because media is always involved, and we're trying to conduct an investigation that is done by the book, step by step. And when you have the sheriff, you know, come out there, that causes a lot of duress on the detectives, you know, and officers and deputies that are investigating. So I think it's a little bit weird, but, you know, he's the sheriff. He can, you know, show up wherever he wants.
The search that we saw yesterday near Annie's house, like all the FBI agents going in the yards, and then they just put out another release, the FBI did, that they're going to be searching along roadways in this area. What does that indicate? Or does it indicate anything?
That's what they're doing an article search. So what they're trying to prove or disprove, confirm or disprove, is that the individual may have discarded a pair of gloves as they're driving away, right? You can picture someone driving away and discarding clothing. I mean, that individual looked like to me, it looked like he had a couple of jackets on. It definitely appeared that he had more than one pair of latex gloves, which leads me to believe that he was extremely careful in concealing his DNA. So what they're doing with the article search is walking up and down the roadway, probably, 50 feet on either side of the roadway, just to see if there's anything in there. What struck me was that they were doing it back in Nancy and or Annie and Tommaso's neighborhood. It was like right after the video came out, then next thing you know, there's 25, 50 law enforcement officials doing an article search.
So again, what he's talking about here is them looking for the gloves. So they think the person that kidnapped her discarded gloves somewhere, and they're trying to find those gloves. As far as we know, they didn't find anything, but they were looking for them.
I was curious what prompted that.
Yeah, maybe not a coincidence.
It might not be. But again, I had mentioned the brother-in-law before. Again, it's that inner circle. You have to prove or disprove. And as the sheriff said, the last press conference nearly a week ago, everybody is a suspect. So I don't know. I don't know if they had any information to cause them to go back there.
Are you surprised we haven't seen the sheriff in
I'm surprised that
there was
I'm surprised there was not a press conference last night or this morning by the sheriff, because he said on Facebook or on the sheriff's webpage, if there are any significant activities, or we're not going to have a press conference so there's significant activity. Well, I think last night was a significant amount of activity.
Do you think that's an indication the FBI is in control?
Whether or not they're in control, I don't know. Is it an indicator of them being in control? You could say yes, but you could also say no, because...
And we went over this the other day too. I asked ChatGPT this, and they said it really depends. It depends on the jurisdiction. If they think something has crossed state lines or into another country, then that would prompt often a federal takeover. But again, we don't really know who's in charge right now with this.
Realistically, that this is not an FBI case. We don't have any proof that this alleged kidnapping crossed state lines, which would in fact turn it into a federal case. So as far as I know right now, the sheriff's department is running the investigation, but those three letters do hold some weight, so it's possible.
In your experience working cases, I mean, we're 11 days in, what does that mean? I mean, what does this window mean? Does it get more difficult? Is it not a good sign that it's been really almost 2 weeks now?
Yeah, well, I was having a conversation yesterday about this very thing. As the days progress, you're going to run out of leads unless stuff keeps coming in. So with the release of that video, obviously it's going to generate leads for, the next couple of days. And if they release something else, even further out. But absent any new leads, look, the sheriff's department, we have a county that's bigger than, 3 or 4 states. You can't keep everybody focused on that investigation. So initially it was a lot of individuals involved from different units within the sheriff's department, different detective units, patrol units, a lot of people working overtime, but you can't do that in perpetuity. You have to shrink the amount of manpower, and that's going to be based on the amount of leads. So once that manpower gets, keeps shrinking and it's basically down to just the homicide unit, that's when cases go cold.
Well, maybe with the FBI sending more people in, that'll help
maybe
sort of alleviate that.
Maybe. But again, it's not their case. It's not their investigation yet. They can't just come in like the movies and, take over a case. They have to have jurisdiction. And as far as I know right now, they don't have any jurisdiction. I'm extremely grateful, and I'm sure the family is as well, and all of America, that the FBI is assisting with the technological aspects, because they're able to do things that we can't even fathom. So I hope that they're continuing with the videos. I would like to see more video. If they have a clearer picture, put it out, because that's going to generate leads. Because once the leads stop coming in, the task force is going to shrink, and the case is going to go cold. So by releasing more information is the only way to keep the case going.
And just lastly, Kash Patel said last night that he used plural, like multiple people that they're looking at, which I guess would go back to what you said, that there's probably different
Sure.
avenues.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, you start in that inner circle. You start with the family. You start with any caregivers. Did they have any work done on the house? You know, the Uber driver. How many Uber drivers? So there's a lot of people that they can interview. I think they've done a pretty good job of canvassing the neighborhoods. If someone in the neighborhood would have seen something, I'm sure by now, you know, they would have said something.
So again, we're coming up on almost 2 weeks here. I don't know when the actual deadline for turning something into a cold case is, but with each passing day, no body found, no suspects that we truly know of. I mean, it's looking better and better for the people that did it, because I think with each passing day, the likelihood they get caught reduces. And if they don't find something here by the end of this week, there might be nothing they find, because what's going to change? What's going to change? We just don't know. But what do you think, chat? 1, do you think they're going to find this person and it'll be solved? Or 2, no, this is going to take a long time, if it ever even gets solved at all?
Another thing I thought of, a lot of people have been asking me, they're like, are people scared in Tucson? Are people in the neighborhood scared? And it's been my kind of feeling that they're not.
Yeah,
which is kind of interesting.
I don't think anybody's scared, you know, up here. This is not something that occurs all the time. You know, I don't think that there's any concern for the general public based on this one individual case. It appears that it's isolated. The idiot that was at the door walking up, I mean, he looked like a buffoon.
I don't think you know that, Chris. I mean, you get pacemaker. Are they all connected to a hospital? I don't think they always are. I don't think they all are connected. So we don't know that.
I know previously, you know, I said this is a, you know, I think a professional deal, and it still may be, but that individual that walked up to the door and tried to cover the camera, he was completely unprepared, but he was extremely comfortable. He wasn't looking around, you know, he was extremely comfortable being there, almost like he knew that there was nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's a good point. He wasn't darting around and looking behind a million times to see if anyone was driving by.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a normal home invasion where, you know, guys, you know, multiple individuals are coming to a door with guns and, you know, kicking doors and battering rams or hammers or pry bars. He didn't have anything. What I would like to know is how he got inside the house. That's a huge key, huge question for me.
Anything else, Allison?
No, I mean, I just wanted to say, did you, from what you have been hearing, have you heard anything that last night's operation was mostly conducted by the FBI?
Yeah, I did hear some information from some contacts that I have that last night, you know, was an FBI.
So here's the thing. If the pacemaker is indeed connected to a hospital or doctor, they could find it out. This is what they would say. Yes, hospitals can determine if someone with a pacemaker is alive or deceased, often using the device's diagnostic data. Remote monitoring can detect specific patterns like base rate, pacing with no capture. The heart muscle is not responding to the electrical impulses, which indicates death, as shown in studies published on PubMed. So key points: device data, pacemakers and ICDs, implantable cardioverter defibrillators, defibrillators record heart activity, including arrhythmias and lead parameters, allowing professionals to verify cessation of cardiac function. Remote monitoring: in some cases, automated alerts are triggered by abnormal recordings on remote monitoring systems. So it's all about whether they're actually being monitored. Some are and some are not. If they are, then they should know.
Garnered the information and set the movement into action, and utilizing the Sheriff's Department SWAT team and, you know, other agencies to help track that guy down. So again,
you don't know that. You keep on saying that, but you don't know. Stop spreading things as if they're true when you don't know.
Not that the FBI has control, but, you know, if they come up with something, because they're working the technological aspect of it, they may have information and it's actionable and it needs to be worked on right now. So they may have said, hey, this is what we got, let's go. And they mounted up the troops and rolled out.
Hey, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate Kurt for talking.
Correct. There's lots of people that have pacemakers And if every one of them is being monitored by a hospital, that costs money, it costs data, it costs time. Is it impossible that some of them can be monitored? No. But to say it definitely is monitored and they definitely know, that's just jumping to conclusions. And I don't like that.
With me, I actually hear a helicopter right now, which is basically the sheriff's office helicopter has been in this area a lot, searching. It's so sunny out today, by the way, and hot today. So it's tough conditions for these search crews out here in the desert, and there's a lot of them now. Again, I told you more FBI agents have been showing up. I also met up with Rick Castigar. He is the former undersheriff here in Pima County. He was there for 40 plus years working for the Pima County Sheriff's Office. And he has been a great resource because he knows the area very, very well. He knows the landscape very, very well. And he has some interesting theories about why he believes Nancy Guthrie is still alive. He took me on a drive around this area near Nancy.
That's interesting. I didn't know that part. So I'm not sure where Brian Entin's based out of. I have a feeling he's in California. I feel like when he was covering the Rob Reiner case, I'm pretty sure that's close to where he lives. And I'm pretty sure Maureen lives close to there too. But Arizona is not very far from California, so I think he just took the ride down. And he has his show on News Nation too, of course. And I don't know if he has to do that at a specific studio or he can just do it remotely. I don't know.
Nancy's house. So I wanted to, I think he's got a lot of good insight, so I wanted to introduce you guys to him.
Interestingly, Savannah began here in her career working for KVOA, the NBC affiliate here, and she was a,
So I was wrong. He's not in California, even though he was watching the Rob Reiner case. He lives in Florida, apparently. Brian Entin, that is.
Out of college, she's an attorney as well. She went to the U of A here, and when she cut her teeth in Tucson, and she and I interacted dozens of times on stories that were going on involving the sheriff's department.
So you know Savannah.
Oh, sure.
So that must make this even more.
It makes it. I was so happy for her making it big, local kid makes it big. It was really nice to see that. Delighted for her. She's such a sweetheart and a good-hearted person, caring, deferential, compassionate in what she does. Just a neat lady. So one of the things I see or saw that happened was this sheriff's department, which has talented people, but it's my opinion that once they knew that this was not an individual who walked away and might have succumbed to the desert, once they knew this was an abduction or a kidnapping, the federal entity should have been called in. And it's my opinion that the FBI should be charged with this investigation, and this sheriff's department should subordinate itself to the FBI. Now, the local elements are clearly an aspect that are needed, and the sheriff's department has that capability to provide that. But we don't have forensics like the FBI has. We don't have.
So this guy's the undersheriff. He was an undersheriff, apparently. His name's Rick. And basically, he's saying that the local law enforcement should subordinate themselves to the FBI, let the FBI take over the case, especially once they learned there was an abduction. But why won't that happen sometimes? Well, egos get in the way a lot of times. And you would say, oh, well, there shouldn't be egos in this kind of thing. There shouldn't be egos when someone's life is at stake. And I would say, you're right, but you would be surprised. Humans are going to human, and there's probably a chance that maybe they don't want to. They don't want to give the spotlight to the FBI. Maybe they want to do it themselves. I don't know.
Those who can look at personality types that might commit this kind of crime. And it should have been recognized initially that once this is labeled an abduction, get a task force together and bring on the FBI and ask them to take it over.
Why do you think that didn't happen?
Unfortunately, the sheriff, Chris Nanos, has an exorbitant ego, and he, in one case I can think of prior to this one, told the FBI he's the better investigator and he doesn't need their help.
What did I just say? Egos get in the way. And he's basically saying the sheriff right now has an ego and thinks that he knows best. And even in cases where he should be giving it over to the FBI, he's not.
And that was a critical case that we needed their help with. This one in particular, they have far more resources than the sheriff's department has. You know, this county was established in 1865. It's a big county, and law enforcement has been an element to it for decades and decades. And it has a lot of experienced people and talented people, but not the resources that the federal agencies have. So it's apparent that perhaps Nancy was abducted. It's apparent that she was likely injured in the process. It's apparent that somebody did it for a reason. We don't know. There seems to be the thought that there's money involved and Bitcoin. And, you know, I'm sitting back in my experiences of 46 years in law enforcement asking, well, why is it $6 million? Why isn't it $3 million or $10 million? And why is it labeled US dollars? What does that tell me? And I'm asking myself, where are they keeping, Nancy? The logistics involved in keeping a person safe, if in fact you want to turn that person over safe to get money, is complicated.
Do you think though that the ransom element could just be wrong? I mean, that they're moving on from that. Are you hearing anything? Because it seems like, based on Savannah's last video and some of the messaging from the FBI and the sheriff's office last night, that they may be following other leads now, something totally different.
Well, certainly, and they've gone back to the scene to look at the vegetation of the desert in and around the home. I would have hoped that that was initially inspected in such detail that they could look for footprint. There seems ABC affiliate here, and she was fresh out of college. She's an attorney as well. She went to the U of A here, and when she cut her teeth in Tucson, and she and I interacted dozens of times on stories that were going on involving the sheriff's department.
So you know Savannah.
Oh, sure.
So that must make this even more.
It makes it. I was so happy for her making it big. Local kid makes it big. It was really nice to see that. Delighted for her. Being, Nancy, the logistics involved in keeping a person safe, if in fact you want to turn that person over safe to get money, is complicated.
Do you think though that the ransom element could just be wrong? I mean, that they're moving on from that. Are you hearing anything? Because it seems like, based on Savannah's last video and some of the messaging from the FBI and the sheriff's office last night, that they may be following other leads now, something totally different.
Well, certainly, and they've gone back to the scene to look at the vegetation of the desert.
People are giving me shit living, so I decided to rewind it because they're being obnoxious.
In and around the home, I would have hoped that that was initially inspected in such detail that they could look for footprints, you look for downtrodden areas in the desert. And as you can see, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. Is this a kidnapping? I don't know. Why would they have her this length of time if in fact the family has decided to pay and they want her back? What has happened? Is there another nefarious intent here? Is somebody angry at the family for some reason? And we don't know that. I don't know that. I would be asking those questions. I would be looking at.
And he's saying just things that we've talked about 100 times in the stream. Is it a kidnapping? Is it for revenge? Or is it for something else? We've been going over all of it.
The cameras that go in and out of this jurisdiction to the border of Mexico. The first night, if she was taken, and presumably by a vehicle, where are the tire tracks? Did they head to the border with her and cross somewhere into Mexico?
Do you think they even looked for tire tracks? I mean, it just seemed so rushed in the beginning, and they opened everything back up.
I think the initial thinking was this is another elderly person who's wandered away, and that happens in the desert often. That type of a situation happens. And the resources that were called out initially, search and rescue folks, people on foot, investigators, the sheriff's department has a homicide team, and one of their ancillary responsibilities is to look for missing people and start delving into it. But it's clear to me that the evidence that they found at that house was indicative of an abduction and a crime. That was clear to me. And I'm not looking at the case. I don't know the specifics. So I think there's some flailing of arms.
So again, he's saying the evidence at the scene says it was an abduction. Yeah. I mean, the only question left to ask is, what was the ultimate goal? Was the ultimate goal for money and a ransom? Or is it some kind of revenge punishment thing? I tend to still think it's a ransom thing because I don't understand what it could possibly be for revenge.
Literally going on, and an investigation that's unclear. Sadly, I know Chris Nanos, the sheriff, and his personality type and his need to micromanage, and he stifles creativity because of the way he interacts with his talent. And that is not necessarily a positive thing when you have an investigation of this.
So basically, he's here calling out the sheriff saying, you're stifling creativity. And he's basically saying he's a bad leader. He's being a little more diplomatic about it, saying, oh, it's not necessarily the best thing. But he's really saying, no, he's not a good leader, and he's not getting the best out of the people around him.
This sort, you need resources, you need outside looks at this.
Is he still, do you think the sheriff's office is still in charge? Do you know? Because it's kind of hard. On the outside, he's quieted down a lot, and the FBI seems like they are taking over some.
And again, the local sheriff's name is Sheriff Nanos. That's the guy who's the sheriff right now.
Aspects.
Well, they're supporting, and I've heard the sheriff say that our partners, our federal partners, which infers that they're involved in this. It's my opinion they should be the lead. And
is it just an ego thing?
Yes, that is my opinion. It's an ego thing.
And why do you think that might be? What have we said before? A lot of narcissistic people that have big egos, they're attracted to positions with power, status, authority, and control over others. Where does that apply? Oh, law enforcement. Because now you have authority, you have power, and you have control over others. So they're going to be attracted to positions like that. So you're going to see, more than likely, if you look at the police forces, etc., you're going to see probably a higher rate of narcissism than the baseline. If I had to guess, that's what I would say.
And I have seen that play out with that personality, Chris Nanos, a number of times in my career. And it's not helpful. Sometimes you need to back up, reassess, and consider what other resources might be available and call on those.
Is it true that the homicide team is inexperienced?
It is true. They're less experienced than previous homicide details, but a lot of folks have retired, myself included.
I mean, how inexperienced?
They're, to my understanding, there's a number of them that have only been in their positions a couple of years, and that is not enough experience to deal with this type of a crime. To abduct an elderly person and demand money is I can't recall in 46 years of law enforcement service a case like that ever occurring, ever, and that's troubling. But who?
He's a retired sheriff and undersheriff. That's what he is. And his name is Rick. I don't remember his last name because Brian Entin doesn't include it in his description. He only says it once verbally in the video, and then it's nowhere else.
Has the experience, and I think the federal agencies do, and they should have been called in earlier, in my opinion.
There's reports now that they're DNA swabbing, people who worked in Nancy's house, that kind of thing. Is that pretty typical?
Yes.
That doesn't mean that those people would be suspects, I don't think, right? I mean, it's just they're probably just trying to. Well, what do you think?
I believe that if it's being done now, should have been done a long time ago. I'm sure that there are support individuals, that have come in, whether they have medical, nurse visits as an example. Those people need to be talked to. Landscapers need to be talked to. The pool keeper needs to be talked to. DNA pulled from all of those is important because if you've got an unknown DNA, which perhaps they do, I don't know whether they do or don't, you need to exclude or look at a match.
Yeah, that would make sense. You mentioned how big the county is. I mean, until you're here, you don't really realize it, how vast it is. And there's it's tough terrain. And just for people at home who don't know, I mean, just describe it a little. And how big is it?
This county, Pima County, named after the Pima Indians, is 9,241 square miles. That is huge. There's a town 150 miles from where we are right now that's still within the county. The county has a direct border with Mexico, and that's miles and miles, tens and tens of miles long. The county is bigger than some states along the East Coast, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and it requires a special type of policing. One off.
So this guy's name, based on recent news, February 2026, former Pima County, Arizona undersheriff Rick Castiger is speaking out regarding the handling of a local missing person case. News Nation reports. Brian Entin from News Nation. Other Arizona law enforcement figures named Rick include former Pima County Sergeant Ricky Garcia. No, not him. No, but this guy, Rick Castiger.
Officer might have a need and could be 30 miles away, and that's not easy to get there quickly. So the topography, as you can see, we're heading into the Saguaro Monument, is another challenge. The desert is not necessarily, it's beautiful, but it's not always friendly. There are a number of risks out there with thorny bushes and cactus and poisonous animals that, do hurt people that go out in it. So,
Sweet Caroline, thank you very much for this. Sweet Caroline says, people who hold on to power to the detriment of those they have a duty to care for, give me the cakes. I couldn't agree more. And it sounds like this sheriff, he was really sticking his beak in where it shouldn't go. So he was there. He's not even supposed to go on the crime scene, right? And the guy said before this, detectives don't like it when the sheriff shows up. So it sounds like he's doing things for his own selfish reasons, not because it's best for the case. What are his own selfish reasons? Ego, trying to get the status and attention. And that's what this guy here, Rick, is saying.
The search and rescue capability of the sheriff's department is pretty busy. They're always busy. They're always searching for something.
Do you know what happened with the plane? I've heard some reports that the plane didn't get up right away because of a beef with the sheriff and the pilot. Is that true?
Well, I don't know it to be true. I've heard the same thing. It's my understanding he dismissed the pilot that was going to fly the night that she was missing. It's my understanding that that same pilot contacted via a chain of command the sheriff and said, look, we have a need. We have aircraft available. Can I go? And he declined, is what I've been told. I don't know that to be true, but that sounds like what the sheriff would do.
Do people know that Nancy Guthrie? I mean, I'm just, I'm trying to think about like why this may have happened. And obviously Nancy's daughter is Savannah and people know she has money, but do people in town in Tucson know that Nancy Guthrie lives here and where she lives? Is she?
This is a good question by Brian here. But this guy, the former sheriff, the former undersheriff is what he is. He's got a presence about him, right? He's got a calm presence that commands respect, and he's a good leader, it seems like. And wouldn't you rather have a guy like this on the case as opposed to Sheriff Nanos? To me, that would probably go a lot better, because it doesn't sound like this guy, doesn't sound like his ego is going to get in the way nearly as much. But the things that you can pick up on from people just from listening to them for 5 to 10 minutes.
Known in that way to be Savannah's mom?
Yes, I think the vast majority of people who pay attention to what's going on in this community know that Savannah grew up here, went to school here, and her mother lives here. I think a lot of them know that. I don't know that they personally know Nancy, but certainly they know of Savannah and the success that she has had in her career, and she's brought a sense of pride to this community because we're all proud of what Savannah has done, and we want to band together and deal with this unusual situation and get Nancy back to the family.
Let's talk about the geography here.
Well, what you're looking at is really typical desert right now. And
so a question for you, Bella, because you're our surgical nurse in the chat. How often are pacemakers, are the people in the hospital going to be able to read them? Is that like a very rare thing that can happen? So that people in the hospital can see, okay, she's still alive or not still alive? Or is it extremely rare for that to happen? So that's, I'll be curious, Bella.
Obviously, everybody recognizes saguaro cactus, and we're going to see a lot more. But some of the other shrubbery around here, like these spiny things that are tall to my left, those are called ocotillo. And if you looked closely at them, they all have spines on them. There's mesquite brush here, palo verde trees, which actually the name is Spanish for a green tree. That's one of those right there. I don't know that you wanted a tour necessarily. People have heard about certain cactus that jump off at you and stick to you. And those are actually called jumping cholla. And I'll show you one when we get around.
I'm just thinking though, like, and I hope Nancy's alive somewhere. I mean, obviously,
we all,
but when I look at this, there's a lot of places to hide something.
There is. The topography is extreme. We're at 3,000 feet in elevation, right where we're at right now. And there's a mountain in front of us that goes up to close to 7,000 feet. And there's a mountain to the north of us that goes almost 10,000 feet. And everything in between.
So two things. I just heard that a pacemaker can continue to go even if someone's passed. And then Bella says the pacemaker transmitter needs to be in correspondence with her pacemaker. So it doesn't seem like the transmitter is, though, right? I guess there's variables that we just don't know, right? We don't know exactly because they haven't told us.
Creates a topography that's a challenge. And as I was mentioning earlier, the search and rescue team for the sheriff department has really difficult times in trying to locate people who come to this part of the country ill-prepared, without water, get lost. And
do people just vanish and you never find them?
Well, yes, that's happened. Typically they're found, but in many instances, they're found deceased because they were ill prepared. They didn't have enough water. In the summer, you could have 8% humidity and 115-degree temperature. That will kill you very quickly.
So do you have a, I mean, I hate to say gut feeling, but based on, the people you know, and you obviously still know a lot of people, you were at the sheriff's office for how long?
46 years.
46 years. What is your gut telling you right now?
My gut is telling me that she's still alive.
Really?
And that the people who are holding her are trying to manage the logistics to get what they want, which presumably is money.
All right. And that's what I had thought too. But honestly, it's a little surprising that to me, he thinks his gut feeling is she's still alive. That's impressive considering the medications that may or may not be there, the blood thinners, etc. Now, granted, it's possible maybe they got them somewhere else, but for a seasoned law enforcement person like Rick here to say that, that's not nothing.
And then safely return her. That's my gut.
So you think it was a kidnap, like a legit kidnapping?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the most logical outcome for this case. But there are certainly other possibilities, and you have one could be she was taken to spite some member of the family. We don't know that, but that certainly is an area that needs to be addressed and looked at.
But I just wonder why. I mean, it just seems like there'd be other people you could kidnap that would be easier, that are connected to more money than just this older woman who's needs medicine, can't walk very well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I think as I intimated, the logistics involved in keeping her now into week 2, just healthy and alive, is.
And again, if it's spite, it's not money, it's spite. What could the spite be? Someone who's jealous of Savannah's success? I mean, that's where I'm struggling with the motive for that. If it's spite, is it somehow political? I just don't get that sense from this, though. Even if Savannah's husband was connected to the Clintons or the Democrats, I just don't see it.
It's extremely difficult, and who could do that, and where would you keep her? This particular case has gotten national, even international.
Oh, thank you very much for this sale. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for all your support. And if you're out there, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And there's an awesome flock of black sheep here every night, which is cool. I'm almost live every night too. And I usually talk about true crime or current events. And I use my experience with narcissism, mental health, and addiction, and I apply it to those topics. And as you can see, just even with the ego thing of the local law enforcement, it does apply. Those things, they apply to all areas of life. So thank you again, Sale.
National coverage. And I think Nancy's face is extremely easy to recognize. How do you take her to someplace if, in fact, you need to get care for her, or have her eat, or use the restroom?
Would it be easy to get her into Mexico?
Yes, it would. There are heavily traveled border areas that you go down, and the United States Border Patrol pretty much gives you access without much question, and the Mexican authorities on the other side are typically, they won't question you. You just go in, and it's highly likely she could be in Mexico. It's my opinion that might be one of the places that would logically make some sense to deal with her until what they want, what they're demanding, is satisfied.
If you were still at the sheriff's office, I mean, what would you have done differently? Would you have taken help from more people early on?
This is a very good question by Brian. What would he have done differently if he was in charge? And I also wonder, though, I wonder if this guy, Rick, has some kind of feud with Sheriff Nanos. That could maybe explain some of this, too. But let's see what he says.
And how important is it in those first couple of days to do that?
It's critical in the first couple of days. And yes, I would have taken things differently in a different course. I would have called on a task force. And the whole idea is to collaborate with other people who may have other ideas and other input and other experiences in law enforcement that could come to the table to compile all of this as a strategy to try to deal with this. The longer this sheriff's department takes to try and resolve this, the more difficult it may become, because there are medical issues with her and the need for her to get that attention, medical attention. I would have called in the FBI very early on, and as we have now learned, this was considered to be an abduction, kidnapping initially. Well, within the first 24 hours, they were coming to that conclusion, and the sheriff was, for reasons I don't clearly understand, was withholding detail that came out later that could have come out sooner. And he could have enlisted the help of the resources I've mentioned earlier, like the FBI and their forensic capabilities, not just electronically, but certainly with the evidence that's at the scene. They could have helped with that, could have helped expedite that.
Yeah, I was thinking about just motives. It's like money for these kinds of things, and based on other stories we've covered: money, sex, vengeance, vendetta. Do you think it could be like a vendetta or vengeance against someone else in the family that maybe doesn't have anything to do with Savannah Guthrie?
It could be. I mean, all of those situations or motives are certainly possible. A lot of people keep drawing to Savannah and her notoriety as being the impetus for this crime. That's not necessarily something you would want to solely focus on, because there are certainly other possibilities. Has someone in the family been or angered somebody else to cause them to do this? Those are things that need to be thoroughly vetted, and that's what police investigation is. Talk to the brother, talk to the sister, talk to any other siblings, caretakers, as we've discussed before.
I really appreciate Rick for taking the time to talk with me.
And me personally, I'd be asking where the brother-in-law is now, or brother-in-law. It's Savannah's brother-in-law, but Nancy's son-in-law. Where is he? What's been going on with him? Is he purposefully having a low profile here? That's what I'd want to know. And notice we haven't heard much about the church thing either, where some people were saying there's no way for them to know who's present and who's not. And others were saying, oh no, the church can tell who's online and who's not, because Nancy wasn't going to church physically anymore. It was just remote. So I still have those questions too.
I'm going to obviously be staying on this, see what develops today, and keep you guys posted with any developments. You guys know I'll post right away. YouTube, I'm on TikTok, also on News Nation pretty much every hour. And if anything pops, I'll just, like last night, I just got in the car and rushed to that area near the border. I mean, I was kind of nervous. Like, I need to slow down. I was going like 100 miles per hour in my little rental SUV. But I was trying to get there fast, just because at that point we still thought that it may have been something really, really serious. Again, now it seems like this person was let go, and it may have just been some kind of mistake, although we'll see. Hopefully we'll get more information today. I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks again for checking out my channel. And again, as I always say, So
his channel is Brian Entin Investigates. He's part of the A team to me. He's the journalist that I would trust more than anyone on this case. And as far as former FBI goes, Maureen O'Connell is the one I like the best. So that's who we're going to go to next here. And unfortunately for some of you, Kat, I'm sorry, but this is where she is.
I mean, I suppose we can't tell that from looking at the doorbell camera, but anyone have a thought on whether the odds that this guy was just the decoy at the front? We'll start with that one.
I would say if he was the decoy from the front,
So what they're talking about here is maybe the guy on the front camera the picture was released. Maybe he was just a decoy and someone came in through the back. Could be, but let's see what they say to this.
you're still going to likely see a lot of anxiety in most people because he's now part of this crime. If he is the person in the back who's actually committing the crime, or he's already committed the crime and now he's just fiddling around with the cameras, he knows what he's done, you're going to see a lot of anxiety. I think the absence of a lot of anxiety and nervousness is profound here. And Jim, you touched on it earlier. I think it is profound. And when you are about to commit or be a part of an extremely violent crime, and you're just walking around casually, whether you're the decoy or whether you've come back to alter the camera, and you can behave like that, that's how you behave in your non-criminal everyday life. And that speaks to his personality. And I think that's what we want people to know about him, along with the facial recognition. They understand that. They have seen that. They could have lived with him or lived next door to him. That is profound.
I'm thinking about the movie Free Solo and the guy who climbs the mountains and doesn't have ropes and, at great risk to himself, and how he just has a different adrenaline gland than the rest of us. They actually studied him. He just doesn't get the adrenaline flowing unless he does truly extreme things, which is not like normal humans. And this guy seems to have a touch of it. I mean, this does not, to me, look like somebody full of adrenaline. He knows he's about to commit this crime. He's not running around panicked on this patio.
And yes, I'm fully aware a lot of people don't like Megyn Kelly, but as I've said before, Maureen's good. I trust Maureen's thoughts in this case. So we'll follow her, and I follow Brian Entin when he comes on here too.
Realizing he's standing on a woman's patio wearing a ski mask in the middle of the night. Like, if anybody drives by, he's potentially toast. He doesn't seem perturbed about it at all. Jim, you were going to say a minute ago what people need to look for right now. Like, this is a real person who's out there right now, and there might be clues in his behavior.
Yeah, and look, we've said from early on, Megyn, that we can't rule out more than one person involved in this. There's a car involved in this. We can't see this in any of the videos that have been released so far. And is there a driver in there waiting for that? Did something happen at the back door? As complicated as this case is, in many times, even working other complicated cases, and I worked some of them with Mary Ellen back in the day, sometimes, Occam's razor is really what applies here. And we can go overboard with all kinds of conspiratorial elements to it.
Is the one.
Exactly. And so at least one guy here, perhaps with someone else in the car, perhaps not. And then they take her to some other location. And that's the second. Well, that would be the third crime scene. The car would be the second. So we'll see where that goes. But that, of course, that can't be ruled out. But I just, as we profilers know, and we've been trained this way, and we now impart this knowledge to other folks doing these type of work, is, what's important is pre-offense behavior, of course, the crime itself, and post-offense behavior. And each of those could have categories to them in terms of what they've been doing all along. And basically, even before this crime, I'm talking right now to the people out there who are listening, and you have a really big audience, Megyn. So I know a lot of people are going to be watching and listening to this. Someone knows this guy, and they have possibly for weeks, months, or years. They're related to him. They're married to him, something like that. This guy clearly was So look at the video, and I'll let others out there discuss height and weight and build and all that stuff. The way the guy carries the gun, I think Sigmund Freud would have a field day with how he has the gun right, sort of in front of his crotch area.
Or in his crotch.
Yeah, but that's for someone else to go. But before the crime, he's distracted. He's busy. He's sort of self-absorbed. Hey, leave me alone. I need some time here. He's on the internet a lot. And of course, he's making these purchases. In the old days, it would be in a store. You walk in and buy stuff. Nowadays, no doubt, Amazon or some other service. Does he have money issues? Does he complain about money?
So this is 5:10. Brian Entin just put another clip up, so we're going to skip to that real quick.
Hey guys, I just wanted to check in with you guys. I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house. You can see there's a sheriff's deputy out there now, pretty much around the clock, keeping an eye on things. You know, there was like that Pizzagate situation a couple nights ago where someone ordered a pizza and the pizza delivery driver was able to walk right up to the front door. So they seem to be keeping a closer eye on what is happening outside the house. Relatively quiet tonight. The new elements here are TMZ is reporting, which I also found the backpack on the Walmart website. It seems the backpack that the alleged kidnapper was wearing in the surveillance photos. So TMZ reporting, according to...
Oh, let's see here. Sweet Caroline, thank you very much. Is it true, I wonder, that they found a black glove on the side of the road? If they did, I don't know. I know they were looking for gloves, I think. I don't know if they found one, though. But chat, do you know if they found one? I don't. That has not been confirmed to me. But thank you, Sweet Caroline.
Law enforcement sources that the backpack was bought at Walmart, which, you know, will help the FBI. They can try to sort through who has bought that backpack lately. I've told you guys earlier, you know, that the glove was found. We confirmed that the glove was found a mile and a half from...
All right, so here it is right here.
Nancy's house. We still don't know. It's a black glove. It looks similar to the glove that the suspect was wearing. It's going to take some time for them to do testing on it. There's also reports that there was a pair of gloves found, that it wasn't just one glove found. Outside the house here, I wanted to show you guys. Really sad. There's been people who have been dropping off flowers and candles. It says, "Dear Guthrie family, your neighbors stand with you." The neighbors are just like wonderful people out here. We've gotten to know a lot of them. A lot of them come by and walk their dogs every day. And a lot of them knew Nancy. I mean, remember, Nancy lived here since the 90s. She's, you know, so it's a long time, 30 plus years. So, sorry, losing my throat.
Wait a minute. So Brian just said they found a glove. Did they find both gloves? I think he said one.
So the neighbors are torn up about this whole thing, and I think they're a little more on edge since those photos came out yesterday, just because the photos are so frightening. So that's pretty much the latest outside the house. I'm going to keep an eye on everything. If any developments happen, I'll be sure to let you guys know. But again, it's pretty quiet out here tonight. All right, talk to you guys later. Hey guys, I just wanted to check in with you guys. I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house. You can see there's a sheriff's deputy out there now, pretty much around the clock, keeping an eye on things. You know, there was like that Pizzagate situation a couple nights ago where someone ordered a pizza and the pizza delivery driver was able to walk right up to the front door. So they seem to be keeping a closer eye on what is happening outside the house. Relatively quiet tonight. The new elements here are TMZ is reporting, which I also found the backpack on the Walmart website. It seems the backpack that the alleged kidnapper was wearing in the surveillance photos. So TMZ reporting, according to law enforcement sources, that the backpack was bought at Walmart, which, you know, will help the FBI. They can try to sort through who has bought that backpack lately. I've told you guys earlier, you know, that the glove was found. We confirmed that the glove was found a mile and a half from...
So singular glove, not gloves, plural.
Nancy's house. We still don't know. It's a black glove. It looks similar to the glove that the suspect was wearing. It's going to take some time for them to do testing on it. There's also reports that there was a pair of gloves found, that it wasn't just one glove found. Outside the house here, I wanted to show you guys. Really.
So reports that a pair, not just one, but I guess the pair part is not confirmed.
Sad. There's been people who have been dropping off flowers and candles. It says, "Dear Guthrie family, your neighbors stand with you." The neighbors are just like wonderful people out here. We've gotten to know a lot of them. A lot of them come by and walk their dogs every day. And a lot of them knew Nancy. I mean, remember, Nancy lived here since the 90s. She's, you know, so it's a long time, 30 plus years. So, sorry, losing my throat. So the neighbors are torn up about this whole thing, and I think they're a little more on edge since those photos came out yesterday, just because the photos are so frightening. So that's pretty much the latest outside the house. I'm going to keep an eye on everything. If any developments happen, I'll be sure to let you guys know. But again, it's pretty quiet out here tonight. All right, talk to you guys later. Hey guys, I just wanted to check in with
So again, even with that one glove, or even if it is two, based on those other reports, they don't know who they're from. It could be anyone. Right? They're not. Is that directly to the suspect? They don't know. I think they're just trying to play it safe and collect whatever they can because maybe you don't want to throw out any possible leads, right?
Complain about money? Does he have some sort of resentment towards, and again, we're not sure this is about the money. So I'm saying possibly the money issues, or does he have some resentment? Does he always watch the Today Show with Savannah? And is that some fixation he always had? Would he yell at the screen when she would say something? And we're familiar too on this panel with erotomania. That's a condition in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that psychologists use and psychiatrists. You know, that's a condition of stalkers. And there's different levels of that too.
They think you have a love relationship when they've never met you.
And I've worked a few of those cases over the years. I know all of us have here, and I've actually been I've been sort of targeted myself in that regard. Handled it, accordingly. I'm Megan, I'm no doubt you too. So that's pre-offense behavior.
Yeah.
Post-offense is his schedule is amiss. He hasn't showed up for work. He hasn't showed up places he should be. Very quiet, very isolated at this point. That is, if he still has Mrs. Guthrie's or not, we don't know. But certainly he'd be paying attention to her at least twice or three times a day. He'd have to visit her. And I'm going to the assumption she's still alive. So he's being very careful. I don't know if he's on email doing these types of email sending off. I think that's someone else. As I said the other day, the guy that steals your phone on the subway is not the one that makes money off selling it to some place to get the material out of it. He just gets his quick $50. Is that this guy's role, or is he just doing this strictly for anger and some kind of frustration? The last part here, now the video gets released about 25 hours ago. He all of a sudden gets frenetic. So,
and most of these are about the guests. It's not about Megyn Kelly.
Whatever this guy's odd behavior was before, if you're around him, things changed. He's putting things in bags and suitcases. He's moving them out. Does he start a fire in a barrel somewhere? Does he get a shovel and start burying things? Go somewhere near water? That's a very possibility. Moving around quickly. Does he change his appearance? Shave a mustache? Cut his hair? That's very possible. Dye his hair, even though you don't really see any hair in that regard. If he has a car, he may be keeping that inside a garage, not wanting it anywhere. If he thinks now he's been seen on video, he may think his car's been on video, and he's still very focused on the media. He may be listening to us in real time, and if he is, please let Mrs. Guthrie's go, and the damage you caused will be a lot less, including for you. So I'll be glad to open this up to Maureen and Mary Ellen, but these are some of the factors. Look at the video, then look at these behavioral elements that I just listed, and you could be some more in there, and that's the person we're looking for. Then call the FBI and let them know, and I guarantee you someone will follow up on it.
What do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think right now this guy's very agitated and he's going to have a very short temper, whoever this person is, because he is trapped in a corner and he's a rat. With regard to the front door, the back door, which one? Well, they may have more video that shows him opening that door somehow. And if he did, either it was a practice of Mrs. Guthrie to either accidentally or purposefully leave that door unlocked, which is, I would have a hard time believing that, or they may have had a key. I don't know. And then they opened the back door just to make it look like they came in from the back door.
That's true, because we don't see him struggling with the door at all. We only see him struggling with the Nest camera. So we still remain in the dark about how he actually got into the house. Go ahead, Mary Ellen.
Okay. And to add to what Maureen and Jim have already said, you've got the behavioral modifications to his appearance that he very likely could have engaged in. But what he can't change is his personality. It is what it is. And I think that he's probably glued to the TV, to the radio, listening to people talk about what he's done. And I think one of the real questions that I always have in a crime of extreme violence is, Does the offender feel bad for what they've done to the victim? And not to become too graphic, but this was probably so upsetting for Nancy to have this happen to her, to be taken out of her home and put in a car with a stranger. I mean, what she must have gone through is.
Sweet Caroline, thank you very much for this. Let's show Jared how much we love his analysis. Like. You are the best, Sweet Caroline. Like indeed. And because likes are free. But super chats are always welcomed as well. Thank you, Sweet Caroline, for that.
Agonizing. What her family is going through is agonizing. I think we have to allow for the possibility. Maureen and Jim and I have seen people like this. They have no empathy for the victim. And so you asked earlier about what he would think about somebody else being pulled over for his crime. That may not have gone well with this offender because he wants credit for what he did, if that's the kind of offender that we're talking about. And I can tell you this, and Maureen and Jim, you weigh in on this.
And that's a big thing there too, right? Depending on the offender. If you're like the BTK killer, one of the things that he didn't like was there was another serial killer that was getting credit for being worse than him and getting credit for the things that he did. And he didn't like that very much. And so he actually reached out to law enforcement again, anonymously, but that's how they were able to catch him. His ego got in the way. Now, if you truly want to get away with money, though, then I don't think that motivation would apply. If you truly want to get away with it and get off scot-free, you're not going to want your ego to get in the way like that. So it just depends on the type of offender that you're dealing with. What is the perk? What are they like?
This is the hardest thing for the general public to comprehend, is that there are.
Correct. Thank you very much for this, Isabella. I really appreciate you. You are the best. Thank you. And Mav's wifey, thank you very much. You are also great. I appreciate everyone's support. I wouldn't be here without the great flock of black sheep that we have here. So I'm very grateful for all of that. I'm very grateful for all the support that I get here.
People that feel no remorse for what they do, no empathy for the victim, and take a great deal of pleasure in what they've accomplished, and that they are outwitting law enforcement in this investigation. If that's what we're dealing with, that puts this person in a whole different category. And that's what we try to do, is we look at all of this behavior and offer it to the investigators to say, you could be looking for this kind of person, the post behavior, but you also could be looking for somebody like this. At this point, we're not sure, but you have to consider the possibility this person doesn't feel anything for the victim and what they've done.
Mm-hmm. And that's something you can't forget. If someone has impaired empathy to no empathy, they're not going to be like a normal person. They're not going to feel that guilt. Those kinds of people, they're not full of toxic shame, as some people would like to think. In fact, I think it's more likely the opposite, shameless. And when someone doesn't feel guilt, they're shameless, they don't have empathy, they're not going to act the same way that a regular person's going to act. And you can't forget that.
And that's the scariest thought of all, because we don't know where Nancy Guthrie is and whether it's possible she's still alive. There was some speculation, we've talked about it, that like an experienced kidnapper takes the medications. Like they actually, it's not because they care about the victim at all. It's that they know, I've got to keep my prize alive and well if I want to get paid. But this guy does not appear to have taken her medication and does not appear to have been in touch. If he didn't write those two ransom notes, the first ransom note to the 3 news organizations, and then the follow-up note where there was no proof of life, but really just like a reminder that I've got her, and I'm just assuming that's what's in there. This is the thing I've wanted to get to, though. The Nest camera. It's very interesting that he came up. So, like, keep in mind, one of our theories is that possibly he stalked the house and knew it well, and like knew exactly what his plan was coming up. Another one is possibly he was hired by a friend or a family member of Nancy Guthrie's and told, please go at 1 a.m. and do the following thing, 1:47. And that person would have told him, under the second theory, there's a Nest camera. Now, that could be why he wore a ski mask, or he wore a ski mask because he didn't want Nancy Guthrie to be able to identify him. We don't know. But he shows up there almost surprised. I don't know that there's a Nest camera. And the reason I say he looks surprised is because you see him sort of fiddling with it. He's got his gloved hand. He's kind of fiddling with it. He does the bang, 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 the gentle taps on the Nest camera. He doesn't try that hard. And then he gives up. He's like, I'm going to cover it with vegetation. And he goes and he gets the vegetation and comes back and covers it. And then we never see him get the Nest camera off of the wall. We do see in the post-crime pictures taken after police got involved, the remnants, the receptacle that holds the Nest camera still there.
The housing,
and we know from the sheriff, that they don't have the Nest cameras. The law enforcement does not have the Nest cameras. The perpetrator took them. So eventually the guy does get the Nest camera. And we're told by Ashley Banfield that there was one in the back door too, and he got both of them. Her source said they were destroyed, and the sheriff said, we don't have them. So we believe he destroyed them and took them. But we know for a fact that they were gone. So what do you see? Do you see like a clever man come up and boom, boom?
Sweet Caroline, thank you very much. Jared, do you think that it makes a difference to any moral culpability if the perpetrator has no empathy? No. Now, our justice system, or really legal system, they don't take that into account. The only time they would take something like that into account is if it's an insanity plea. But outside of that, I mean, if you took away the empathy thing from people in prison, then, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't even be there, right? If no empathy was a way to get out of it, a lot of people wouldn't be there, because a lot of them, at the least, have impaired empathy, I would say. Doesn't mean they all have none, but very likely they have impaired empathy. But that's a good question, Sweet Caroline. Thank you.
The Nest camera's off, it's destroyed, you see him step on it, and the filming stops. No, that's not what you see.
Oh, and the other part about it is, I mean, this goes into a philosophical debate, the debate on free will, right? Where there are a group of people that think none of us have free will. We just think we do. Now, of course, our legal system is not based on that. Our legal system is based on we absolutely have free will. So again, would it change how you see it if people didn't have free will? It's just an interesting thought exercise.
You see him come up, do the tap, tap, tap. He gives up, he gets the vegetation, and then we're not exactly sure what he does after that, because the videos don't all seem sequential, and we're not exactly sure what the sequence of events was. But let me show you. So we had our producer, Jake Whitman, get a Nest camera and try to get it off of its holder on the wall. And he did this little video. It's very clear. Watch this. Watch.
Okay, Megan, I've installed the Nest doorbell camera on our door to the garage here. And what's interesting is it comes with a little tab, just a little flat tab, almost like a tip of a screwdriver, really. And that's how you remove it from the top. So you just push down and it clicks right off, sort of. There it goes. So it pulls right off that way. And that's how you take it off to charge it, because it is battery powered. It needs to be charged every so often. There's no wires here.
And again, this will be interesting to see. Are they going to find the audio to that? So they got the footage. Are they going to release audio too? And maybe there's not much audio to even release, but still, I'd be curious.
And you'll see this plate looks exactly like the one that you see on the house at Nancy Guthrie's house and all the news videos. So it's the same model. And to put it back, you just click it on the base after you've charged the battery, and it's there. And the question is, how do you get it off without the tab? And I was excited because you said we could smash this if we wanted to, and you'd pay for it. But you don't need to do that. You actually, just with a little bit of force, you can pull it right off. And the base is still there, undamaged. And actually, this camera is still recording. So if I take this and throw it or put it in my bag, it's still going to be recording for a little bit longer. So I got to think there's still video of that they haven't recovered that might show a different angle of things that we haven't seen. There's no evidence that it was damaged on the front porch. So my guess is it was just taken out of.
And I apologize, Danielle. Your girl Maureen isn't getting much airtime in this clip.
Wi-Fi range, and that's why it disconnected. Or they could have turned her Wi-Fi off. But taking it off the base, like I just did, does not disconnect it in any way. It's still capturing.
That's so interesting. So that's Jake Whitman. Great job there. Taking it off the base is easy and does not stop the filming. And anybody who knows the Nest camera should know that if you have this little key, it's the size of like a key a girl might have for her diary for the listening audience. It's small. It's like an inch large. It pops right off. And so it would take nothing for like an experienced burglar or kidnapper who's by this point probably familiar with Nest cams to know, oh, all I need is this little thing. It's off. And you don't even need this. You saw Jake just wiggle it a little in its cradle and it came right off. So what, and it's small. I mean, you have it, fits right in the palm of your hand. And then we can talk about what happens next, because there's not an on-off switch, guys. Getting it off is not enough. Getting it off, it should still be rolling. And there should still be images of the guy getting it off, which maybe Cash has and just hasn't shared. But what does it tell you?
So Jay in the chat says that Ring cameras are more secure. That would not surprise me because Ring is a much more popular brand. I'd never heard of Nest until this case. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ring is better.
Just so far, I'll stop it there, that he didn't seem to know how to get it off. He tried. He did the wrong thing with the fist, and seemed to be a bit of an amateur there. Go ahead, Fitz.
Yeah, real quick. The audio from your producer, Jake, was that from his separate mic system or is that some from the Nest camera? Because there is audio to these cameras too.
I think that's separate. We're going to ask. I'm guessing it's separate. And he did tell me that that this thing has audio, but the default setting from the factory is no audio on. So you'd have to go into the system and turn the audio on if you wanted that, which the odds of Nancy Guthrie,
well, she didn't
knowing how to do that. I mean, I guess she could have told the Nest camera installer that she wanted that, but we didn't hear audio and what the FBI released. So I'm just going to guess there wasn't any. Keep going.
Maureen, we talked during the break, and you have some insight about these cameras. I think that was great for your audience to put that up there, Megan. And a good idea for your team's part. Maureen, I'd be curious to hear some of what you were telling me over the break.
Okay, great. But first, Nancy didn't install this, and whoever this person is did not install this Nest camera, or he would know what you just explained to us. But I have a very close colleague that I work with on my team all the time, and he is an IT genius. And he said that with regard, Megan, this is with regard to how the FBI extracted this data back after people thought it was.
Side note, the glasses look for Maureen's a good look for her.
Gone. Would you like to go into this now, or would you like to finish with?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's finish with it. Let's finish with it because, by the way, Jake is telling me now that the audio was both. When we were watching the Nest video of him, the audio was playing from the Nest. And when we were watching his nicer video of like more color shots, it was Jake's audio on his mic. So in other words, you can get decent audio from Nest. Go ahead.
Just real quick, and I'll get back to Maureen, but can you imagine if he took those with him, this guy in the mask, and he's someone in the car where he starts talking to himself, still within Wi-Fi range of the house, what valuable information that could be on audio. But
yes,
if
the crime.
Well, the crime itself too, of course. Which this is all the crime.
But wait, but here's why I raised that. Here, it's not just for fun. So we're going to do an experiment here, not just for kicks, but because what did we see?
And it's possible, like, is all the white ones always Nest? Because I might have seen them and just not known their name. Thank you for this, Mike. Megan is not a blonde, the real blonde genius. Well, Maureen's the blonde. Maureen's my go-to blonde. How about that? But thank you, Mike.
in the Brian Entin video of the front stoop. We saw that the vegetation and the blood was still there.
Mhm.
They did not clean it up. What didn't we see? A smashed Nest camera.
He probably
We
put it
did
in his
not see
pocket.
any pieces of Nest camera smashed in the front or the back. And actually, so we're just going to see, I mean, just to see. They brought me a little cutting board. They brought me a hammer, and I am going to try to hammer this Nest camera just to see if it's hard. All right. So I have a hammer. I'm going
Be
to smash
careful.
this Nest
Be
camera.
careful, Megan.
I will. I will.
Do you have glasses?
But just to see if it's easy.
Do you have glasses to put on?
Do I have what?
Do you have glasses to put on in case the
I'll
shard
wear my
flies?
reader glasses.
Yeah.
I'll wear my readers.
Oh my goodness, Megyn Kelly's armed and dangerous, about to hammer down this camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put a flashlight in your mouth and
protect
a mask, and you can.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. No, it's not that easy to destroy.
But the camera part's
There,
probably
now
easy.
I've destroyed the lens.
Right.
All right, so now I've really wailed on it, and there's just tiny little pieces of glass and shards, but the actual camera itself is still pretty much intact. I should have warned the listening audience that was going to be right by the microphone. My bad. Thank you. So it did take some effort, and it's possible he took this, you guys, but where are the remnants of it? And if the camera went out, and when I smashed it, we had it online just as an experiment. It went offline when I smashed it.
Oh.
So there's no remnants of it, however, and it's gone. So you tell me whether you think Kash Patel possibly has shots of this guy stealing it, damaging it, or whether the guy was so dumb he took it eventually, put it in that backpack, and possibly they have actual pictures of the inside of the house and what went down that are waiting to be retrieved by the geniuses at Google.
Or the audio. Now,
Or the audio.
the question is, did your producers, I mean, obviously they were there when you were smashing it. Could the information that Ashley Banfield provided to you, that it was in fact smashed and destroyed, could that have come from someone who was knowledgeable of the fact that they had video or audio of someone smashing the hell out of it?
That's a good question. International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital.
Well, that's the end of that one. We got one more.
Haven't they found all the physical clues by now that are there to find? It's like virtually every day.
And this is the one I'm really interested in. Unanswered questions is the name of this segment. And that's exactly what I have. I have unanswered questions, and I want to figure out what their unanswered questions are.
They're out there. You're shaking your head no, Maureen. Why?
Because being on the evidence response team and also being part of, being a case agent involved in a lot of these cases, especially when you open a tip line. So as soon as they offered that $50,000 reward, that just opened the floodgates as everyone here, certainly those of us in the Bureau, can attest to. And when they open those floodgates, you're going to get a whole bunch of other tips. For example, you're going to get phone calls saying, hey, on the day after she disappeared or late that night, I was driving by a highway, whatever, and right here at the mile marker 32, I saw a car pulled over and parked or whatever. Then you've got all the technical stuff going on in the background that we talked about with the geofencing and everything. And if they opened it up and looked at the hours afterwards. And
thank you for this, Mike. Mike says multiple layers of clothes to conceal actual build. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we have any leads based on that image, right? So it worked so far.
And such. They'll notice that 2 devices were stopped on the side of the road, someplace or the other, so even they're checking all these things out as they come in and as they're developing throughout the investigation. It's very fluid and it's very,
So Mike says, thank you, Mike, for this. Looks like a cartel. Savannah's husband was a fixer. I don't know if he was a fixer, but he was involved with the Democrat Party and the Clintons. And yeah, I'm not ruling out a cartel. But thank you, Mike.
It's very intensive.
James Hamilton, what do we glean from the fact that they keep going back to Annie and Tomas's home and neighborhood? Nancy had eaten dinner with them that night, allegedly played games, and was dropped off back at her house, which is, I'm told, 4 miles or 10 minutes away. So why, I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions about that couple, but that is not, we're told, the crime scene. So why are they so obsessed with canvassing that neighborhood and that backyard?
Yeah, I don't think you're jumping to conclusions at all. You always start with who saw the victim last.
So Mike says, thank you for this, Mike. Gloves are very specific to heavy electric work. I mean, those specific gloves are. I think I did remember saying that. So, yeah, I think you're right about that. Thank you, Mike.
And in this case, that's who saw Miss Guthrie last. So that makes complete sense that they're going to, run that to ground and continue to look at that story. And, don't forget, kidnappings are, like we were saying earlier, they're very, very difficult. And so this, indication there's more searching going on. This is a very desolate area. This isn't Manhattan. It's possible there's, a place to put a body in a lot of different places. And remember, this kidnapping, obviously there was some violence, and we know there's a heart issue. So either the violence could have caused some, God forbid she died during the kidnapping or shortly thereafter, or her heart, God forbid, stopped. And now this kidnapper's stuck with this dead body. What's he going to do? Right? He's not going to get any money for it. If that was his intent, was to kidnap to get the money. Now, what are you going to do? Well, maybe you dump it. And then
thank you, Livin. She's always telling people to like the video, which I really appreciate. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And also, super chats are a great way to get questions answered. And I go live almost every night. The only night I usually don't go live is Sunday night, but we talk about true crime, current events, and I use my experience with narcissistic abuse, addiction, and mental health, and I apply it to those areas. Now, overall, though, just today, just feels like the energy's not as exciting as it was yesterday. Like yesterday, they had the person they detained. It seemed like they were closer to something yesterday. But now it seems like they're further away. It seems like there's just not as much at our fingertips right now. That's what it seems like. I don't know if anyone else can sense that too, but that's what I sense.
you just drive away. And so there's going to be, like Maureen was saying, people giving tips saying, hey, I saw this, no one's talked about this white van. That's a whole good lead. No one seemed to want to talk about it. I'd love to talk about it, but that's what you're seeing here. I'm shocked that there's a very specialized unit of dogs that the FBI has that can track a lot of things. I'm surprised they haven't been deployed. Maybe they have, but things like that, I would have had expected to see by now.
Mm-hmm. Will, you're shaking your head. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things I'd probably pick up on, Megan, from your comments about the interest.
Oh, this guy's a Brit.
In family members or close family members. Well, the first thing that I got taught when I first learned kidnap and ransom negotiation was the 70% rule, and it still prevails to this day. And that is that in most kidnappings, if this is indeed a kidnapping, in 70% of cases, there will be someone connected to the victim that will be working in close proximity or will be a family member. And I think through the process of obviously elimination, the feds are going to have to look very much at the family very, very closely to see whether they are a viable prospect in terms of being suspects or whether they can be discounted from their inquiries. And just to cover on a point that James made, I've negotiated on the return of a dead body. So again, depending on who the group is, I agree with James that yes, if he does have the frail Nancy on his hands. And
thank you for this, Mike. Mike says the interview room on YouTube has great info. Well, I'll have to take a look at that. But thank you, Mike.
She passes away. He may potentially discard the body, but if there's a slightly more professional element behind it, they may still continue to negotiate against that for the return of it. I think the key issue here really is the proof of life or lack thereof of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Fitz. I can see you want to get in.
Yeah, and historically speaking, everything that's being said here in the last few minutes is accurate. The last known, and I'll touch on a few subjects, and I'm going to be corrected here, but the last known for-profit kidnapping of which we are aware took place in the outskirts of Oslo, Norway. And the media was not involved or told about that for weeks after it happened. Kidnapping note was left at the table. She's missing. Body never recovered. Husband was arrested, then released thereafter. We brought up Sidney Riso. I did early last week, the Exxon executive. He died 4 days into his captivity. Those kidnappers kept it up for 50 plus days after that, trying to get the money. Husband and wife team eventually arrested. We talked about some of that last week. And to go back to the search aspects of it, there's never a wrong search or a bad search. I mean, as long as it's legal with consent, things we've all discussed already so far. And there's nothing wrong with re-interviewing, re-interviewing, multiple times people as new information comes up. So to me, it doesn't necessarily put any more of a suspicion on family members when agents are going back. The other thing I'll throw out there, I haven't heard this mentioned at all by anyone in the media. And I've been to Phoenix a few times. I'm not sure Tucson. I know it's not a lake-filled or pond-filled area, but I'm sure there are reservoirs or retaining ponds, pools, whatever they call them. I've heard nothing about any dive teams going into them anywhere along the way, and maybe someone here has. But that's something that should also be considered. Again, I'm not looking for Mrs. Guthrie's here necessarily, but certainly tools, elements of the crime, anywhere along any sort of egress. That's something they may want to consider if they haven't already.
We predicted this, and now it hits via TMZ that the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's.
So Bella reminds us in the chat that Suzanne Morphy, is that her name? Yeah, Morphew. Suzanne Morphew was found 3 years later, although it was just her remains.
Department are homing in on the outfit the presumed kidnapper wore as he approached the front door. They are on the hunt for who bought the items. Law enforcement sources involved in the investigation tell TMZ. They singled out 3 items in particular: those gloves, Maureen, the backpack, and the gun visible on the Nest video. We're told authorities are contacting manufacturers and retailers to figure out who may have purchased the items: the gloves, the backpack, and the gun. What's interesting to me is, like, maybe not the gloves, like the backpack and the gun. That's something, guns are big in America and they're big in the Southwest. It's not unusual to find somebody out there with a gun, and it's not unusual to find anybody with a backpack. A face mask that, you wear that where I grew up in Syracuse, New York. That's, everyone's got one. But in Tucson?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can wear it down to get your mail if you want to have your face when you get back inside. But that to me seems very suspicious. In any event, they, of course, are going to do that because we saw in Kohlberger, as clever as he was in some ways, he bought that damn K-bar knife on Amazon. So even someone named Brian Kohlberger was brilliant in some ways, but made such elemental mistakes. So they're probably checking the Amazon histories of all the family and maybe contractors who show up at the house, right? And then beyond that, you got to go the other end of the transaction, the sellers. That you can't just go to Amazon and say, who bought a face mask? Can you? I don't know if you can, but you definitely can go to the retail stores and say, do you sell this backpack? Look at it. And it was very distinctive looking. I still haven't figured out whether those are lights on his shoulder straps or reflective patches, but it's a very distinctive backpack, and we have both the front and the back of it pictured. Very helpful, no?
Very helpful. Very helpful. I think it's that you've highlighted the key areas as far as I'm concerned, which are the most identifiable in trying to obviously trace the firearm. I agree. I think even in terms of the ski mask, I think that's could be a lost leader in trying to follow inquiries on that. It would be very difficult. And who knows, maybe he knitted it or a family member knitted it. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's been bought from a retail store.
And even this one looks different. Like, where's the facial hair that looks like it was in the other one?
But I think the backpack, certainly, the trousers, certainly the jacket, certainly. Those are the 3 areas I'd be most concentrating on.
One of our audience members was pointing out, can we play the video where he realizes that he's got to turn around, he's got to go back out and get the vegetation, and where he bends down. And she raised something that I actually has been gnawing at me too. Is there something wrong with this guy's leg or knee? Because watch, when he turns around and goes back out there, hold on, he's trying to do his little tap thing to get the Nest camera off, which does not work. Stand by. Okay, now he's backing up. Okay, so where he bends over there, he doesn't look very facile. He doesn't look very limber. And when he bends over there, he doesn't look like the most limber person either. just made me wonder. I'm really going out on a limb here, but like the calmness with which he executed the crime and maybe an injury. Could you possibly be looking for somebody, you know, former law enforcement? That's who committed that Exxon kidnapping, former law enforcement. Or was he former, Jim? Or was it? Or
we talked about that in the chat the other day too. That 1992 Exxon kidnapping, straight from someone's driveway.
Was he current? Anyway, he was definitely law enforcement.
Former Exxon Security, which of course was Exxon Security Vice President who was kidnapped.
Okay. I don't know. I guess you guys, I think, might conclude, based on what you told me yesterday, Maureen and Fitz, that probably not former law enforcement, given the way he's holding that gun. That doesn't, right? And so then maybe not former military either.
But he's altering the way he walks when he approaches the front porch and the camera, because you know, people can say, oh, he looks surprised that there's a camera, but what we know is how he's dressed. He's dressed to conceal his identity. He has a set of gloves under the nitrile gloves. He may have leggings on under those pants to make him look a little bit heavier than he is
or
her, which I don't know. That facial hair looks pretty legit, but what do I know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's an altered gait, just on the off chance that someone gets some video off this thing, or if he can't destroy the camera right away, or whatever his plan was, because he definitely 100% is altering the way he walks and his stance as he approaches that camera. Would you guys agree with that?
It doesn't look natural.
No.
But most likely for utilitarian purposes, as opposed to a nagging injury of some sort. We can't rule it out, of course, but he currently has his head down and he has a big backpack on. We don't know how heavy that thing is and what's in there, of course. So his gait is going to be a little bit, you know, sort of off in that regard. He may have had some practice runs. Let's not forget, too, all the things they're looking for. I'm not sure if they sell flashlights that strictly are designed for the mouth, that you push the button, you know, and you squeeze it somehow and the light goes on. That's something else I'm hoping. There can't be too many people that buy those things within 100 miles of Tucson. So I'm hoping that is something they focus on. It could be a clue like that really helps.
There were some astute...
I mean, today feels like a make or break day here. We didn't find anything today. I think that's not a good sign at all. And I kind of feel like it's really dwindling here. What's going to happen? It's not to say she's definitely dead, but with each passing day, I think it might just fade. This whole case, if something doesn't happen by the end of this week, this is Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. If something doesn't happen by Friday or Saturday, the public's interest is going to wane. And then it'd be almost turning into a cold case from there.
Astute viewers who wrote in about that, what looks like a mouth flashlight of some kind.
It is.
Saying that you would have to remove from your mouth with your gloves. And there could be a transfer of, you know, your saliva onto the exterior of your gloves. And those gloves then had to touch things in Nancy's home. So like, that's actually somewhat promising. This guy probably does have his own saliva remnants on those gloves and definitely used the gloved hands to go into the home and hurt Nancy and get Nancy. And I'm sure he touched something. Go ahead.
There's one thing I wanted to say about that transfer, because that's a very good point. That is a mouth flashlight, and you turn it off and on by biting on it. A lot of apparently airline mechanics and stuff like that, or people that deal with wires and stuff, they'll use it so that their hands can remain free while they do their work. And it's pretty much the same technology as those headlamp ones that you get. But with regard to the gloves, a lot of people always think that I'm wearing gloves, my DNA can't get anywhere, but everyone underestimates the number of times they touch their face, no matter what. Like, you know, I mean, just going like this, and now you touch something. So that's going to be the DNA stuff. And the way you find that sometimes, like even if we look at the, when they took Nancy's car out of the garage, it could have been something as simple as when they went back in there and they looked at they turned off the lights and they turned on their flashlights. I used flashlights extensively, and you could see that there's an area where the dust has been swiped away. That's an area you want to look at and you want to test. You're not going to
Sweet Caroline has gifted a membership in the chat. Thank you very much for that, Sweet Caroline. I know someone's going to really appreciate that.
Certainly not going to test the entire vehicle as a general rule, but if there's an area like that where the dust is disturbed, that's where it got swiped, and that's where the transfer potentially could have occurred.
Well, let me ask you, Will and James, what you think, because ran this by our other panelists yesterday. There's one photo in the series that's been released by Kash Patel that shows, we think, this same abductor farther back without the backpack. And you can't see his face at all. It's either because the camera is too pixelated, that's what we were speculating yesterday, or maybe he's turned it around entirely. But here's the shot. You cannot see any sort of a backpack whatsoever. I don't think you can see the gun. We zoomed in on it yesterday. And you cannot see the holes for the eyes or the mouth. And this too was released to us by the FBI. Now I can go with maybe pixelation too far away on the face mask, I guess, but no backpack. The backpack, there was all this reflective stuff and the lights or whatever's on. Like, what do you think we're seeing there?
I mean, just jumping in there, James, if you don't mind. There's a couple of quick questions, Megan. Were you given actually unedited footage which ran continually, or are these just snapshots which were provided by the Bureau? So yes, again, they may not necessarily be consecutive. There may have been an initial probe. Sometimes they will make an initial approach to see, is there anybody else in the house? Is it undisturbed? You know, is there just one person there? It's quiet. Everyone's gone to bed. So, you know, he may have returned, or she may have returned, to go and get that backpack from their vehicle and then make that actual approach. So it could have been an initial probe. But the thing that, certainly before I pass to James, the thing that really confuses me, and I'm sure I'd love to hear the opinions of the others, is there are so many contradictions in this whole method of approach.
So the DNA they found was of Nancy's, the blood on the front step and inside. They said that was Nancy's, but they didn't say anything about anyone else's DNA. But just because they haven't said it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
He's using a torch which has to be activated by the mouth rather than a head torch. And it's not a question of him being necessarily seen by anybody with a head torch, because he's carrying his weapon obviously outside of his waistband. So, and again, the gloves, the mask, the ill-preparedness for actually removing the Ring doorbell. There are so many contradictions here, from what could have been professional to what's somewhat of a clown show and an amateur.
Yes, totally. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of this.
And again, that's what they were saying about the difference between the ransom note and the crime scene. The crime scene, they said, looks pretty amateur, but the ransom note that wanted a bribe was basically pretty professional. And so that doesn't add up to a lot of people.
I was looking at the picture to see if the shoes were the same, to make sure we've got, you know, the same person, and maybe not.
A lot of our online sleuths watching us on YouTube say the shoes look different to them. That the shoes from, you know, faceless man look different from the shoes.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say he looks very similar to the guy who we know approached the door.
Yeah, when we're doing like surveillance training, we're always taught, you know, shoes, watches, and glasses, people don't usually change those. And so I was kind of looked there first. And this person's shoes are different. So is it two people? I don't know. It might be the same person. They're wearing the same outfit. Could be two. The eye holes missing is odd. But I think I agree with Will. It's quite possible this is the early. They came up, approached, see what they're dealing with. Then they come back with the backpack, and then they do this, you know, silliness with the flowers to do the obfuscation of the camera. But for me, this looks like a probing in the beginning before the actual act.
International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital.
All right, that was the end of that. We got one more to go over. This is one that I like these guys.
Savannah Guthrie's mother has been kidnapped and is being held for ransom. And there have been a few videos put out by Savannah and her family. And
so this is called the behavior panel. My favorite guest is the guy in the bottom right here. I think Mark Bowden. I like his analysis a lot.
Take a look at those. Greg, tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
Yes, so there are going to be 3 videos in total that we're looking at. And the first one has Savannah, her brother, and her sister talking about the situation. The next one we'll look at is her brother, and then finally all of them back together. I think it's worth the time to split a couple of those up, and you'll see what we see.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She is funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is
The talk to her and you'll see is the Silence of the Lambs line.
missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day, despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief. We are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama.
So Brenda's asking me, do I think she's alive? I think it's not looking good. It's not looking good. I think it's like 85% she's not, 15% she is. Now, of course, I can be wrong, but that's my gut thinking here.
Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So I'm not going to talk as much about body language as I usually do. What I'm going to talk to you about is stress. And I worked in the stress lab on Earth, the RTL, the Resistance Training Laboratory, we called it in SEER. And it is probably the place you'll see the most stress anybody ever sees, to the point that you can break people literally with words.
So again, people that are in shock, maybe people that are on the spectrum, they're not going to sound as emotional as other people. I'm not saying Annie's on the spectrum, but she might be for all I know. But when people are on the spectrum or they might be in shock, you know, you got to really think about that when you consider how they sound. Now, other people like Savannah, she doesn't have that going on for her, right? She seemed very emotional and in her emotions with it, at least in that first video.
And stress. We've seen Savannah Guthrie in front of a camera for a long time. We've actually talked about her on this show. And she is very fluid in her exchanges. She can shift gears very rapidly, but you can see she can't do that here. You can see what stress has done to her face because all your mucous membranes, one of the big things stress does is turn off all your mucous membranes because it dries up your eyes. I mean, after they cry themselves to death, and you'll start to see the sagging in your face. You can see it in her very, very effectively. She's also very poised in front of a camera, but she has something in her hand reading. And that's because she needs to make sure that as a result of stress, her frontal lobe is turned off. I'll talk about that in just a second, that she covers exactly what needs to be covered in this letter. And that's the reason they're carrying this piece of paper in their hands. I'll tell you that you think you're brilliant, and you might be until somebody's got you by the collar and is screaming in your face, and suddenly you can't think of the right words to finish a sentence. What happens, the way our brains evolved is for all the way from the brainstem forward into the cat or mammalian brain, then into the primate brain and up into this big forehead we have full of thought, full of logic, full of language, that stuff turns off in the same order. So under high stress, that thinking brain turns off and you go into that cat-like mammalian or reactive brain. It's in fact how we at SEER teach people. We teach them under duress so that it comes back later. And it's the only reason that they can remember to do things. We actually were credited with saving Mike Durant's life from Black Hawk Down. And I probably just butchered his name. But this stress will cause people to behave in bad ways, even if they have a lot of experience in front of a camera. We're seeing that in her. We're seeing her doing exactly what she needs to do to get the message out. You want to see grief? This grief muscle we always talk about, it's 5 muscles that come together. She's showing it. Her sister is showing it. Her brother, not as much. And there's a reason for that. And then we'll see he's doing quiet containment except for his blink rate increase. She's showing that grief muscle. Her chin boss is up and a lip compression, a way of containing all that emotion. So she's really feeling. Her brother, oddly enough, is an F-16 pilot. Probably a little calmer than most of us, even though he's probably not as comfortable in front of a camera as she is. So I'm not surprised he's all calm as he can be. And then you can watch the sister trying to do the right thing, holding onto the paper, doing this. Every time they mention their mom, though, you can see that emotion just well over them. It's really powerful. It's horrible to watch. Hurts to watch this one. I'd rather watch a scumbag get busted by the police every day of the week. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, and first, any of us, I'm volunteering all of us, but we'd be happy to help in the case in any way that we can. We'd love to do anything that we can to help out. The facial expressions we're seeing here are more in common with anger than sadness, most of them. And that's especially at the beginning. And it squeezes a lot of muscles tighter on the face in a kind of an unusual way. And I don't think there's emotional detachment here. I think it's tactical. I think it's an attempt to humanize the family without begging and to evoke some kind of captor empathy is, I think, what they call it. But in these cases, the FBI usually steps in with good intention.
Evoking captor empathy. That seems to be the official wording for it, the official phrase. That makes sense. That's the Silence of the Lambs. It's the FBI's method too. So evoking captor empathy. Now, in reality, that only works if the captor has empathy, right?
In a safety first mindset. They have scripted every word here. They coach posture and they aim to control every frame of this to kind of minimize risk and to prevent mistakes. And on paper, I think that makes sense. There's 3 big things, and these are well known, so I'm not going to reveal any secrets here. Don't promise ransom, demand proof of life, humanize the victim, don't show weakness. So that's kind of the problem here. Is scripting emotion kills credibility. You end up with something that looks like a corporate PR statement rather than a desperate plea from a devastated family. And it's much, much harder to humanize somebody from a script and telling somebody to lock themselves down and where to put your hands. So the humanity kind of gets scrubbed out and the grief gets flat. And that kind of delivery doesn't just, I don't think it just turns people off. It can damage trust with kidnappers. So the agents running these.
This is all true. Thank you, sweet Caroline. Your support is always very appreciated. Super chats are always appreciated. Like the video, likes are free, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
Protocols are they're tactical experts, but they're working off of stats. So they have a spreadsheet basically that says, based on all of these cases, people saying this word and that word and that word were successful. But we exist because words are not the big thing. The words are not what conveys the most emotion to other people. So the mainstream media is not broken at all. It is functioning exactly as it was designed. It exists to manipulate you, to divide you. Don't keep trusting depth of what is actually going on. When they tell families to stay composed, what they usually get is somebody numb, staring at notes, and the family member, if they already have a media trained persona like Savannah does, you risk projecting some kind of rehearsed detachment. So I think a lot of viewers feel that mismatch watching this, even if they can't articulate it. Like the the tension leaking out, the voice and facial incongruence, staring at notes instead of saying something. So that's why we see a lot of suspicion in the media. Like, why does it look like this? Why do they seem so distant? Why do they look like that? They've been told to do this, and they've been told to read word for word from a script. It's much better to do bullet points.
Well, and one key point, the media cares about one thing. The media cares about their story, not about the outcome. And this is one of those cases we need to be really careful, and we will be, around what we say about what's going on here, guys. This is somebody's mother, somebody's life that we're talking about. So I agree with you. They're saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? What the hell do you think is wrong? These people are trying to save their mother. That's a piece of it.
Yeah. And I'll just finish up by saying, I don't think the fix is anything more than, well, it's definitely not more polish. It's typically the fix of this is more humanity. You guide the message, but you let them speak in their own rhythm, and you coach instead of dictate. I think when you over control language, you kill the one thing that it's supposed to do, which is, or the one thing that works here is connection. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, people think this looks odd or doesn't look right. It's because these people have been up for a couple of days. They're worn out, and psychologically they're worn down. They haven't been able to sleep. They're at the highest stress point they've ever been at in their lives. They're there, and they've been there for a day and a half.
And that's completely understandable too, right? Where they've gone through this massive thing. So again, you have to understand that when you're listening to them. I think we're so used to listening to Candace Owens telling everyone to micromanage and look at everything Erica Kirk is doing that we forget not every situation is like that. Like there's other situations like this where people lose their mothers. And so to take a look at it.
At this point. So emotionally, they're burnt out and they're robotic. They're trying to do what they're supposed to be doing, but
Sweet Caroline says, thank you very much, Sweet Caroline. Why no subscription? She had mobility issues and lived with pain. Why was she living alone? I don't know. Something doesn't feel right. Families can be strange. You know, I don't know why they didn't set up a subscription for her Nest, honestly. I really don't know. And I would have thought they would have a proper security system or some sort of life alert or something, especially since she had mobility issues and she's 84. I mean, she lived on her own and it was a pretty big place there. So I don't know what their thinking was with that, honestly. I'm surprised Savannah didn't try to help her with that, or Annie didn't try to help her with that, or the brother didn't help her with that. But whatever it was, they didn't. But thank you, Sweet Caroline, as always.
Going back to what you were saying, Chase, yeah, it's one of those things where you take the authenticity out of it in a way, because you say, I know how you feel, but this is what needs to happen. Now, they're I'm under the impression everything's being said is on the same sheets. Everybody has the same thing, because when they pause, one pauses, the other one knows when to go without looking at each other, without cueing each other or anything. So they're reading from the same script. I hate to say it like that, but it's not what we're seeing emotionally is there's no way to keep that hardcore emotion going. That's why you see Savannah when she makes those odd sadness expressions out of nowhere all of a sudden, then looks at the camera like that. She's trying to show emotion, show she's sad, but she's burnt on doing that for real. I mean, back when it was first happening. So it's hard to imitate that, especially in a situation where you're mentally numb, psychologically numb, and everything is just gone at this point. Your frontal cortex isn't making decisions right. It's all tied up. You've got your hippocampus is kind of shut down because of all the stuff. All your limbic system is on fire in there, and has been for a day or so. So we're seeing them worn out psychologically. That's why it looks weird and feels weird to everybody. Now, I'm going to say this is probably the second or third shot. I'm going to say it's probably the third go at it by the feel of the rhythm they've got there. So that's why it looks and feels so odd, I think. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so the two outside in the subject, they are breathing at the same rate, which would be sorrow. They're out of sync with each other, but I'm not really concerned about that. They're definitely in sorrow.
I like this guy's analysis, so let's see what he says. Mark Bowden's his name.
The person in the center, they're reading the script. They're going to be a different rhythm because they're from a script. But you've got two people in emotional sorrow, but slightly out of sync with each other. Yep. People will pick up on the fact that it looks like they're barriered. Everybody's barriered. But just as been said before, there's some scripts there. Also, they've been put very tightly together in the shot. There's some, and so they're close together. So you've got somebody hunched forward in order to let the other two into the shot. There may be a sense there, to your point, Chase, of them needing to look a little bit subservient there as well, potentially. I'm not sure of that, but there could be that as well. But certainly tight together in the shot. That for me is what is creating the barriers because of the tight space. When we've had videos, subjects that we looked at before, when somebody has been involved in a kidnap in some way, or a missing person, usually what you'll get, in fact, almost 100% of the time, I would say, let's just say 100% of the time, is you'll get some negatives about that person, some negatives. They'll be slipped in to give reasons for why this may have happened to them. There's no negatives about this person's personality, the way they comport themselves. You know, it's all positives. Now, again, there's a script in there, but ultimately, if somebody was a perpetrator here, they deviate from the stress. Would be a different type of stress. They deviate from the script. They'd want to put something in there. They'd want to lay something in there, a trail for you to take, so you'd have good reason to go, oh well, you know, maybe they deserved it. Maybe they're a bad character in some way. All positives. Now I agree, Chase. It's a little bit overwritten of that as well. You've got some big metaphors there. The light, the beacon, the trials. It's quite epic in the way it's written, and therefore it feels a little bit too epic. When you're right, it's likely that empathy is trying to be created between perpetrators here and the victims, and this idea of normal human people, and yet it's written at quite an epic level. Now, again, it may be because there's some strong, obviously, Christian overtones in there, or spiritual overtones in there. That may be trying to create a link. That may be trying to, you know, if the mother here is able to listen to this, be able to create a sense of purpose and sustainer throughout this. I'm not quite sure. But to your point, Chase, the way it's written may raise flags for people. I think what I'm saying here is they're probably the wrong things to look at in this particular situation, or you're being led in a way that you don't need to be led in this. So look, there are some elements there that under other circumstances might be red flags. In this situation, they seem to be, I won't say normal, or usual, but apropos, let's say.
I like his distinction there, and that's what I was saying too, right? Things that might be red flags in a normal circumstance, you got to give a little leeway for, considering the circumstances and the situation.
For this situation. Greg, what's your thought?
I think two of you had something going. Chase, you started off by talking about anger and rage. Anger and rage drive your nervous system to a pinnacle. It makes you aggressive. It makes you want to reach. On the other hand, sorrow suppresses your nervous system and pushes you down. And those two things are fighting in these people for obvious reasons.
Certainly in the mail here, during the talk about the ransom letter, there's contempt and there's withheld opinion. Yep. Made me think, you know, he's not there with the letter getting a chance in this one. My feeling was about that is he may not be able to contain it like the others. He may not be able to do the read in the contained way that the others are able to do it, because he is showing on the brink of potentially more anger and aggression there.
On behalf of our family, we want to thank all of you for the prayers for our beloved mom, Nancy. We feel them, and we continue to believe that she feels them too. Our mom is a kind, faithful, loyal, fiercely loving woman of goodness and light. She's funny, spunky, and clever. She has grandchildren that adore her and crowd around her and cover her with kisses. She loves fun and adventure. She is a devoted friend. She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
The light is missing from our lives. Nancy is our mother. We are her children. She is our beacon. She holds fast to joy in all of life's circumstances. She chooses joy day after day, despite having already passed through great trials of pain and grief. We are always going to be merely human, just normal human people who need our mom. Mama, if you're listening, we need you to come home. We miss you.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know.
Yeah, and so the mama part seemed a little bit forced to induce the captor empathy. It certainly didn't flow. It's like they're just kind of going off of what the FBI or whomever told them to say.
Without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment.
And again, it's just really insane that such a high profile case, they've gotten away with it this long. That's pretty wild in this day and age. It's not like Michael McKee. They caught him pretty quickly. It's not like Nick Reiner. They got him the day after or the night of or whatever it was. I think it was the day after. But this going on 2 weeks here, not looking good.
And we pray without ceasing. And we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love you.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
This is a deeper problem here, I think. This is when you have a script written by someone who doesn't know the difference between written language and spoken delivery. You kind of get this uncanny, why does this feel off reaction.
Did you hear that he said there? Someone who doesn't know the difference between written language and then how it sounds verbally. That sounds exactly like what it was, right? So like, oh, it sounded good on paper, but then verbally actually saying it, it was all stilted and off.
Action, which anybody probably felt, a lot of people felt watching this. And I think the problem is you can't script authenticity. And the entire second half of this
That's a great line. You can't script authenticity. How about that?
initial piece here, it wants to sound really raw, but it's perfect. It's linear. It's smooth. There's no voice shake, breath catching, because it's a script, and they're more concerned with delivery here. So instead of connection, you get confusion. We remember how important connection is. Something feels off, and in a hostage case, that gap between what's said and what's felt might be a big deal. And anyway, we're just doing 4, right? Video 4.
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
They're pretty close
Okay,
to the same
that's
video.
all right.
Yeah.
A good question by Livin here that is kind of like a makeshift poll. Poll is who's behind it. Type 1 for stranger, 2 for Annie or the son-in-law, Annie and her husband, 3 Savannah, 4 political. Which do you think? Or you could even say 5, someone hired by the family. What do you think?
That's all I got. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I think we see a lot of the same stuff. We talk about body language of believability being congruent, and part of what you're seeing here is it's difficult to match the words to the feelings. The 2 feelings that come out again are anger. There's actually some pretty hard, direct rage. You see those lower teeth and the brow come down, and she's talking about proof of life. That's anger. And then when she says something about her mother, you see that shell crack. She says mommy, which I think is awkward wording, but you don't know what you say to your mother if you think it's the last time you're talking to her. So you see all that emotion fleet across her face, and that's an adult controlling emotion and it breaking through, as opposed to her trying to pitch it. And this is a person who's accustomed to being in front of a camera. Imagine how much harder it would be for an average person. She's accustomed to controlling how she looks and what she says. There's real emotion in both of these women as they address their mother. You see it rise. And the problem is because the words, Chase, to your point, don't match what you would expect them to say at the same time. I think it's hard for people.
So we got a pretty good mixture of all the answers, but like Livin said, I'm surprised so many people think it's political. Very interesting.
To see this is genuine. They're trying to get out the right piece of information that needs to go to the kidnapper so that they can do the right thing and get the next step. They're trying to protect someone.
And this is a hell, like hell, that most of us can only begin to imagine.
I will tell you, I've been through some pretty rough times myself.
So this is the question, Bella. Polls who's behind it, stranger, Annie or son-in-law, Savannah or political. And I said 5, family hiring someone.
When somebody dies, you at least have finality. This is horrific. This is what am I doing that's going to cause her to not be okay? What am I doing right or wrong? So there's all kinds of guilt. And
all right. So the follow-up question for the people that think it's political is why? Is it about covering up Epstein something or other? Is it because Savannah's husband was involved with the Clintons? Is it because he's a Democrat? And if you think it's political, I mean, what's the motivation? What's the motivation of the political part? That's what I'm curious about.
Emotions, if you can write them down, they're probably happening in these people right now. I mean,
Sweet Caroline has a super chat here. Thank you, Sweet Caroline. I may risk being liked here. I'm starting to feel less empathy for the family. Actions speak louder than words. I feel that there is so much more that they could have done. I mean, I get it. I think hindsight can be 20/20. I think that is more true for Sheriff Nanos. I think that's more true for him, considering what we know now about him inserting himself into the crime scene, about what the other guy on Brian Entin's channel said about the detectives not liking sheriffs going there, about the former undersheriff Rick that was saying, oh, this guy has a big ego. He should have subjugated himself to the FBI and let them take over, but he didn't. Why didn't he? Because he's got a big ego. So I think that's where there's some second guessing. So Caroline, my question for you would be, what do you think the family could have done differently? But thank you very much as always, Caroline. Judgment-free zone here. And Mike says, thank you, Mike. It has to do with cartels in Mexico and El Paso. But what's their motivation? Is their motivation tied to the political motivation, or is that just a financial thing? Thank you both.
This is horrible. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So look, we had a shift from the male in the previous videos on the idea of suffering. There was a physical movement from him. On the ransom letter, there was contempt and withheld opinion. Here, there's more withheld opinion from the male. Again, makes me think he's leaking more than them. He's probably not the right temperament to deliver, or the right character to deliver this as the females are. Because again, people will probably rightly be going, hang on, why is the guy not saying anything? What's up there? Well, there's what I think is up there. He's not the right person.
So let me go through some of the answers here. So Jolly says it's because they're Democrats. Others are saying to distract from the Epstein files. I mean, that's a possibility. Another person says, yes, interviewing Epstein survivors to stop journalists from reporting on the child trafficking. I didn't think it was that, only because she hasn't done that since 2019, as far as I know. Let's see what else they say. Cartels, plenty of money.
To deliver this, for them to stand a good chance of getting the result that they're looking for here. Now, you are God's precious daughter, Nancy, and we get something like, what Scott might call fading facts on the Nancy, or certainly it's delivered in a very different way from the rest of that. Almost like she can't, you might think, well, she can't say her name. I would suggest it's not a thing that she's used to.
So Mike says, cartels waging war for efforts to stop drug kids. What do you mean stop drug kids? Well, thank you, Mike. Calling
Her mother or mummy, because there's notice when she says mommy, there's some stress behind that, and it's not the same stress as calling her Nancy. So again, I wouldn't be too concerned about the way the sound drops out on Nancy. I don't think that's a problem. She's not on first name terms with her mother. I would say, and I mean that in that that's not what she's grown up calling her mum.
I would have been for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm used to calling my dad. I'm not used to calling him Harry, though my younger brother and sister call him Harry, and I can't get it. I'm like, why do you call Dad that? Well, I haven't broached it with them, but look, they can do what they like. But it feels odd. Feels odd to me. My guess is it feels odd to her as well, and that's why it's difficult for her to get it out. But it is strong emotion throughout all of that, real strong emotion, and she's only just holding it together to get.
So in terms of Savannah's husband, this is what the chat has to say. Per AI, Savannah's husband's firm provided lobbying, public affairs, media relations, opinion research, and crisis management, working on the intersection of business, government, and media. So given someone in that position, maybe there are some political motivations in some cases. I guess you'd have to determine what they did. Like, what did those things do that made people unhappy?
To get that out. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right. I think I've got something that'll help cover everything we've talked about up to this point about the stress and to be able to hold the emotion. Let's say this is your brain and this is the brain stem. And when something happens, let's say you almost get shot or you almost get hit by a car or something, that brain, the frontal lobe locks down. In other words, the frontal cortex and the prefrontal cortex, they lock down. You've got the hippocampus under there. You've got a lot of things going on. Your limbic system is firing off. And when that happens,
Thank you, Mike. Drug and kids and sex trafficking that happens every day at the border of Mexico, underground tunnels, wake up. Yeah, I mean, that is a big thing in Mexico. There's a word for it, but it's like a money-making endeavor. And I'm not saying I'm not ruling that out. Not at all. But thank you, Mike.
you can't think of things to say. It's hard to get a hold of yourself and get your emotions happening because the hippocampus is covered up, right? In other words, it's tightened up. But when you have something to think about. You think about a problem, or you think about reading, or you think about what you're doing, something like that, things starts to loosen up and things start to go back to normal. Then you get that freedom in there of being able to think again. In other words, things loosen up a little bit. So as things relax, in other words, in your brain, then you can think, and then you can make decisions. Even though they're thinking all that, the brain's relaxed a little bit, but they're still having those things where it closes back up and opens back up. That's why reading is so important in this situation, to keep them focused and to keep them focused on what they're supposed to say. That's why they've been given a task, so they don't veer off. They don't lose their composure when they're not the ones reading. That's why they're listening every word she says, prepping to get ready for her part or his part or whatever's coming up. So you have to lock the brain and give it something else to do, a task, so it doesn't fly out of control. So,
or your toes in your shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, so you give it something to do. If you have that situation come up and you can't get out of it and you're freaking out, think of.
So these guys are called the behavior panel. What they do is they break down people's body language and they break down their verbal expressions, etc., and how they talk, and they talk about it. So they're talking about the videos that the Guthrie family made to the ransom folks, and they're breaking down all through the videos, giving us some good fodder here on a slower news day.
Start thinking of something, a problem to solve. Start thinking of anything else. And when you do, that's what starts loosening. In other words, neurologists are going to get it behind him for that. But that's what will bring you back to normal, because it activates that prefrontal cortex and the frontal cortex, and you can start thinking again. You can say, okay, I've got together. That's why you see these upheavals of emotion and stress when people are in situations like this, because they're not thinking when it gets a hold of them. And then you say, hey man, look, here's what I'm saying. And you start talking to them, and you can talk them down out of that a little bit until it pops off again. So we're seeing a lot of that happening here. And that's the reason they're having to read that script, and they're staying on it like that, so they don't lose their composure. That's really important. I think it goes back to the guy we're talking about, like Greg was saying before. He was an F-16.
Fodder is the word of the day. If this was Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse, you'd all have to run around the room. Fodder.
Pilot. That guy's going to be pretty hard to shake no matter what happens, because there's no telling what he's done and what he's seen and what he's been through, because you have to have focus that's incredible to be one of those guys. So, and like Mark is saying, he may be too aggressive for that situation. He's got a deep voice. He's a big boy, and
he's been through SEER school.
Yeah. And obviously he wouldn't have a problem dealing with anybody. So you don't want that aggression in there. You want it to be soft. You want it to be about the women and going back to trying to connect and make that, to humanize the person, which we talked about earlier. You want that to be happening, so you would feel sorry for them. So I think that's why he's being kept quiet there, and they're not giving him a whole lot to say. Even his voice sounds aggressive as well. So I think we pretty much get that.
So again, they're talking about how the brother's not talking because it's not going to strike the chords that the FBI wants them to strike. They want them to feel more empathetic and more compassion. And if the guy's speaking, it's going to be harder for them to strike that note and to strike that chord. That very well could be. And maybe that's why the brother did his own separate video another time.
Wrapped up.
However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you. Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. We will not rest. Your children will not rest until we are together again. We speak to you every moment, and we pray without ceasing, and we rejoice in advance for the day that we hold you in our arms again. We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you, Mom. We love
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
Before we go any further, it was pointed out to me in the break that doing this, which I know, and I preach this as we all do, that's the international sign for help. If you see somebody doing that, I don't need any help. These guys aren't bothering me, because I was chasing, you're doing the international sign for help. So
I didn't know that. So that is the international sign for help. Did you know that?
that's not what I'm doing. Everything's fine. I'm just showing you a little model of the brain. That's all it was. So sorry about that. I'm sure nobody was alarmed, but I'm not in distress over here. So, all right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. Look, very different tone from the sisters there. Very different tone, but very different person. Very different person. Again, is that the right tone for this? Well, they put it out. So my guess is it's right enough, but it is stoic, slightly aggressive. You are seeing quite a tight top lip there. You are seeing some bottom teeth. There is, for me, an edge of aggression in this, but I think that's because of the person that we have here, not because of anything else that you might think might be going on around this. Greg, what do you think to this one?
Mark, I'm not going to add much, because what we're seeing is a person who's been a lifelong military guy, and we all are a little different. Chase, if he were here, he would fit right in between me and Chase in the way we move and all those kinds of things. The other piece, there's only one thing that I would add. He's very stoic until he says, we need proof of life that my mother is still alive. And you see his brow rise. Like, you understand what I'm saying, right? That's what I see in his body language. And agreed, he's probably a little more hard-edged than the ladies are. Scott, what do you got?
I agree with you, because if not, if one of the women had said it, it would have been like, we need help doing whatever, because they wouldn't be able to help it. So you need a little aggression at that point for the person to say, here's what we need, fellas. I understand what's happening. Just so you know, here's what we need if you're going to do this. So I think that's why he's being used, is for that aggressive part there. Mark, what do you got?
I've been Chase.
Oh, Chase, sorry.
Yeah. It was pre-scripted. You could see a little emotion in there. He's kind of going back and forth on his feet. But what you do see is an aggression gesture. You see a dominant foot withdrawal that happens pretty quickly near the beginning of this clip. I think they would have done, if they had to use the script, that's okay. But I think a teleprompter would have helped. Even one of those apps that you put on the screen where you can read text on the screen, I think that would have helped a lot. Just to maintaining eye contact. If I'm trying to have an aggressive message and I keep doing this the entire time, that tends to take away from it. That's all I got.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Greg, what do you got?
So people in the chat are saying that the only people that would stay in the house for 41 minutes are people that knew the place, knew the system, implicating an inside job, someone that knew. Yeah, and that very well could be. It definitely could be. And in terms of the ransom, again, I'm not paying a dime until there's proof of life, and there still hasn't been proof of life.
Well, there's one unfortunate message to derive from this, because they've changed from names and pronouns to objects, and that is just brutal to hear. And watching the sister coming apart, they were embracing each other and entangled for support, and Savannah's back to professional Savannah. You see that face is back to, her emotion is less there. She's more contained. The brother's got a stern set jaw. He looks irritated. And then she says, return her to us to celebrate with her. The only way we have peace. No pronouns, no mom, none of that. We understand. This is brutal. I think you can read between the lines, but noticing that everything in their demeanor has changed to defeated. Their eyes are cast down, and that she's making hard eye contact to ensure that they understand this is, we get what you want and we need this in exchange. I'm not going to go any further than that. It's heartbreaking, actually. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the camera now has dominance on them, and that, I mean, that could be just accidental, but let's just imagine it isn't. That what's trying to be set up here is that the captor or captors.
So the first guy said, Greg, that their heads are down and kind of more defeated in this last video. And now Mark is saying it might have been by accident, but the camera's looking down at them. And he's playing with the idea that maybe that was intentional. So let's see what Mark says here now too.
Have the upper hand, and that's being displayed. They're in control of this. Sense of subservience there for anybody who might be thinking, okay, but they're maybe making this up. There is a slow blink.
So he's saying that the fact that the camera's pointing down at them is to gesture to the ransom people that you guys have the leg up on us. So it's kind of a submissive gesture in that way. Do you think he's right about that, chat?
Of acceptance from the central figure here. We've received your message and we understand. Slow blink of acceptance and a double tap of the thumb, little stroke and a double tap of the thumb on the, I guess, the brother there as well. Again, a signal of an unconscious signal of acceptance of what's happening there. Two really strong signals from my point of view that what she's saying here is accurate and honest and the truth. Scott, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, everything has changed in this.
So he's saying that they know something, and everything they know is accurate. That's what Mark's saying. And I got a super chat here from Mike. Thank you, Mike. Very, very sad looking. They already know more, and I think they agree with you. I think the behavior panel agrees with you, and I think of all the people that said something about it, I kind of go along with the behavior panel here. I like these guys.
Video from the other one. There's not that. This is anger. We see some anger in there, frustration, and defeat. So, I'm
not going to say. Yeah.
No, but it's completely different. Nobody looks the same. And you're right about the brother. He does have that little look of anger come across him there. And I think Savannah and her sister, we're seeing defeat and frustration there. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, if you want to do it, the video like this, you use first person pronouns. You say her, you use her name. Anyway, so some of the things I came across this morning I didn't know about. Same week that this breaks, the House Oversight Committee locks in these Epstein-related depositions for Bill and Hillary. Whatever dates those are, that's public record.
Yep.
At the same time, a story tied to Savannah, whose husband, Michael Feldman, I think it is, worked in the Clinton White House, co-founded this thing called Glover Park Group, suddenly consumes all the oxygen in the news. But that disappeared. But that firm, by the way, is named in the Epstein docs as a PR contact for Clinton damage control. I don't know what that means. I'm not an investigator.
Clinton damage control. So that brings a little bit of credence to the fixer thing that someone was mentioning in the chat before. And the other thing about this last video is when you see defeat submission, the next question is why? Is it because they know something and she's gone? Or are they just losing hope by the day and they're kind of giving up on it, for lack of a better word? But what do you think? Type 1 for you think, no, they know she's gone, as in passed away. Or 2, no, they're just losing hope, and that's what we're seeing.
I just thought that's worth mentioning. That it's just bizarre, and it's probably contributing to some of these things that people are saying this is staged or this is fake. This isn't staged.
Where's
Nothing
the,
staged
where's the,
about it.
where's the connection? What's the guy? How's the guy connected to them now?
It's Savannah's husband.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, look, if I pray I'm wrong, but this doesn't look like she didn't shift accidentally to pronouns that were non-descriptive. This looks awful. This looks like admission.
Yeah. But I just thought it was weird. They were flooded with like hundreds of artificial fraudulent ransom notes. Did y'all know this?
I can imagine. I can imagine.
So it looks like it's about 60-40. 60% of the people think they're just losing hope. 40% of the people think no, they know that she's gone, passed away.
People think they'll get some money. You know?
Yeah, and
Without
still
the
no
risk.
suspects.
Well,
I'm
and some people are just plain cruel.
That's true.
Yeah. And definitely not saying any of this is orchestrated. 100%. I would stake my reputation. It's not that they're going through real grief here, and you can see it in their behavior. But I think this is a testament to how much distrust people have in an exponential number over these past 5 years in the government and the media. So everything feels like a conspiracy because trust is at an all-time rock bottom low in media and government right now. And this is a testament to that. This shows it that we're if you just look online at some of the stuff, they're being dehumanized, and people.
This is true. Chase is giving some good stuff here. Sweet Caroline, thank you. Off to work. See you tomorrow, lovely people. I'll respond to what I think the family could have done more of tomorrow. That's very good of you, Sweet Caroline. Thank you for all of your support tonight. You are the best. So everyone wish Sweet Caroline a good night. She's a great community member of the flock of black sheep here. I appreciate her.
Are like sociopathically posting this crazy stuff that's just mean-spirited and nasty. That's all I got. Was that the last one?
Yeah.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
All right. Well, this has been fairly interesting. What have you seen so far, Mark? How's it looking to you?
Yeah, look, I can see how you might look at this. I totally get it, how you might look at this and see, red flags in there. Just take another look at it again, take into consideration what we've said, have another look, have another think, and see what you think then. Chase.
Yeah, this was brutal to watch. And I don't think it's anything the family did. It's because you can't see what's been done to them. They're grieving, they're desperate, and they kind of get shoved into a costume. And that's what we saw here. But you can see the grief. And this is why people don't trust a lot of stuff anymore. Media doesn't tell the truth. The media just sells narratives. The government doesn't protect us as much as it protects itself. Every institution that was supposed to anchor reality has started to decompose into a theater. So
this is true. And if you're here, please remember to like the video. Likes are free. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already.
When a woman vanishes, her family shows up looking like a weird hostage press conference. Of course, the internet doesn't initially buy it. This is real grief. They're going through hell. There's a mother out there somewhere, a real mom, and this family's living through stuff that we can't even imagine. So I hope she comes home. I hope this isn't any kind of distraction, and I hope the people who did this burn for it. Greg?
Yeah, the big thing is it doesn't matter how much expertise you have in something other than this. There's no amount of expertise to prepare you for what these people are going through. This is a brilliant anchor. Whether you like her or you don't like her politics, this is a person who's in front of a camera all the time and knows what to say and when to say. I actually talked to somebody that knows her today who said she can ad lib and speak on just about anything very fluidly. Not here, because this is something she's not accustomed to. And we're talking about frontal lobe deactivation. The stress hormones in your body that protect your body and get you out of harm's way. Turn off your thinking brain, because there's not much value in you knowing math in the middle of an attack. So what you end up with is this little cat brain that's responding. And Scott's driving home to your point. Scott, do something that forces your brain to come back online. I always say, if you get stage fright, curl your toes in your shoes, because the mere act that you're remembering I told you to do it will bring your brain back online. Giving them the right talking points so they don't say the wrong thing.
That was a good little tidbit there. I'll play that again.
And Scott's driving home to your point. Scott, do something that forces your brain to come back online. I always say, if you get stage fright, curl your toes in your shoes.
If you get stage fright, curl your toes in your shoes, and it'll get your brain back online. That's a good suggestion.
Because the mere act that you're remembering I told you to do it will bring your brain back online. Giving them the right talking points so they don't say the wrong thing is an important part of this whole phase, and we're doing that. But because you are looking at it for congruency and you're looking for they should be saying it this way and feeling this way, and their emotions are just a soup, it comes across as very awkward to you. Don't think these people have done anything wrong. In fact, have some empathy for them. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah. Now, from a learning perspective and teaching perspective, what you've seen here is what we talk about all the time. When we see someone who is missing, their child is missing, or their husband or their wife is missing, and we see all these big gestures, we see all this stuff going on, we see these things that don't fit. That's what we're talking about. This probably looks odd because you haven't seen something like this before. So 3 people who are feeling the same thing, the children of this mother who is missing. So this is what the true grief looks like. This is what the true fear looks like. This is what the combination of all these emotions at the same time look like, and then added with that, with the defeat and the frustration. So you're seeing all these things bunched together, and they're changing as it goes. It's not these big upheavals of weeping and that thing, some of these cases we go over where people are just crying, and you go, why does that feel weird? It feels weird, and it feels weird because it's not right. This feels weird because you've probably never seen it before. This is one of the rare times we see true grief with 3 people at the same time who are going through the exact same thing. So we can watch them and see how and compare them to each other. And then look at the other cases we've worked and other people we've come in contact with and make that comparison and go, oh, that is different than all that. So if you want to see true grief, watch this thing. If you want to see 3 people going through the exact same thing, this is the one to watch and come back and study. All right, fellas, I think this is another good one, and we'll see you next time.
And that was a good suggestion there by him. If you want to study how 3 people are going over the exact same thing, you watch that panel. You watch those Savannah Guthrie videos. Thank you, Mike, for this. Sometimes YouTube doesn't allow me to send messages. Sometimes it doesn't allow me to send messages either, honestly, depending on what I type. I don't know why it does that. There's a sensitive word block sometimes. But thank you for that, Mike. Other announcements here. For those of you who remember Dr. Z, Dr. Jamie Zuckerman, I'll be speaking to her tomorrow. It's just going to be a recorded conversation, though. But chat, what do you think of me bringing people in here occasionally to join me in these lives? Do you think that would be interesting, or too many people at once? But Dr. Z and I, we're going to talk about Nick Reiner, Michael McKee, maybe even some Epstein files and stage 2 of healing from narcissistic abuse. So those of you who remember her, I love eating olives, Jolly. Green olives are my favorite. I like all olives, though. Kalamala, black, green. I love them all. YouTube loves me. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. It might be too crowded to have other people in with the live. I usually do recorded conversations, but we'll see. The recorded conversations don't do as well anymore, though, depending on who I have on. But Dr. Z, she's a very interesting guest. I think people will like her. There you go, Hot Ham. I appreciate you. But, all right, everybody. That's really all I had for this evening, unless anyone else has any other questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns. We might be coming to an end short term of going over this case, by the way. Depending on what happens tomorrow, there might not be anything to go over tomorrow. But like Livin says in the chat, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I go live almost every night. The only night I usually don't go live is Sunday night. We talk about true crime, current events, and I use my experience with narcissistic abuse, addiction, and mental health, and I apply it to those things. I also interview people. I haven't been interviewing as many people recently, but I'm still going to try to interview at least 3 to 4 people a month and see how that goes too. Taylor, thanks for being here. Thank you, Just a Sip. Just a Sip. Nick Reiner, Mike. Nick Reiner, Rob Reiner, Michelle Reiner. You have a good night, Gene. Yeah, I'm not going to go over the old material. I like to keep it fresh. Once you're on the cutting edge here, you don't want to go back. But thank you to Jay, Songbits, and Livin for moderating. Bella, thanks for being here as well. Teresa, thank you. Brian, thank you. Mods doing a good job in here because we have a long chat. We have a long stream here, so I appreciate all of their help here. Thank you, Bella. Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, occasionally I might do that, Danielle, depending on who it is, you know. Stephen King dreams. What is this? It? I agree, Bella. They are all amazing. All right, Brian, you have a great night too. Everyone, thank you again for being here. Make sure you've hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And Kat, God bless her soul, it's 7 a.m. or so where she is. So she's a trooper being in this chat for so late. Charlie, good night. Ellie, good night. Jay, good night. Yeah, if any of you know people that like this kind of thing, invite them into the chat. We're a very friendly and forgiving group, unless I'm being a crankopotamus that day, like I was maybe in the beginning of this stream. But here I am. I've calmed down. Thank you, Eva. But all right, everybody. Till tomorrow night. I will see you all then.